All aboard the crazy train. Hey, everybody. Eclectic Soundtrax here with my good buddy and bandmate Tim Driscoll, and also my longtime friend and Iron Woodworker, who we've had on the podcast a few times, Mr. Dave Tucker. And we got a few other people that may be joining us a little bit here in a little bit. But yeah, I just decided to do this sort of impromptu podcast tonight. I know millions of us were hit very hard yesterday with the sad passing of Ozzy Osbourne. Not that it was a huge surprise, but it stings nonetheless. And especially, I think, coming off the heels of that incredible historical event back to the beginning where Black Sabbath played one last time, Ozzy played one last time, and they raised somewhere between 180 to 190 million dollars for charities such as Parkinson's disease and children's hospitals. So in the end, Ozzy Osbourne, despite all of his antics and the publicity and all the trials and tribulations along the way, I think was obviously a unifier and someone that just brought us together. Literally was at the helm of a creation of a genre of music and in the end a philanthropist as well. So yeah, we're going to just honor Ozzy Osbourne today and talk about that some. I'm trying something totally new and seeing if we can maybe do a live stream while we do this. So I'm going to check on that and maybe you guys, Tim, tell us about how you got how you got into Ozzy Osbourne, man. What was his role for you as a guitar player, professional musician? What was his role in all of that for you and Black Sabbath?
Yeah, so my first memory of any kind that I recall was I remember I was in grade school and there was some like older girl in the school who was maybe like a couple years older than me. I specifically remember she had an Ozzy Osbourne t-shirt and I was like, oh wow, who's that guy? And like knowing who this girl was, right? Like this is, I mean, of course, and this is a common story that we all share, is you see some kid in school wearing a band's t-shirt or an artist's t-shirt, and like knowing what you know about that kid or like how they look or their reputation or whatever, you automatically think about what that sounds like, right? Like I remember, like I saw like some other kid in like my high school who had a Cannibal Corpse shirt, and I'm like, whoa, Cannibal Corpse, what are they set? Like because he was like the tough guy metal dude of the school, right? So anyway, so this girl, yeah, she had an Ozzy Osbourne shirt. I know she was kind of one of the girls who's, maybe from the wrong side of tracks in town. So I'm like, oh, this Ozzy guy, he must be like really scary or whatever. Because at the time, it's like, yeah, I had my older brother who I shared a room with, and so by that point, he had introduced me to Metallica and Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses. So I had some framework for like what heavy metal was, right? So we're talking late 80s, early 90s at this point. But I didn't really know who Ozzy was outside of, I guess, what I may have heard in passing as a kid, right? Then it was once I started playing guitar and voraciously reading guitar magazines and whatever. It's like, oh, this Randy Rhoads this, Randy Rhoads that, and like, okay, yeah, he was a guy who died, and or he was with Ozzy for 2 landmark albums, and then and obviously we know the story about what happened with him, and it was like as I was getting into Van Halen, sort of Randy Rhoads is always like kind of a good Randy Rhoads is like a good chaser to Van Halen, right? When you're learning guitar and you're learning like metal guitar, right? Is Eddie Van Halen and Randy Rhoads were like the Dionysus and Apollo, right? Whereas like Eddie Van Halen was real, was sort of free form in a lot of ways. He was tight but also really loose, his style. Whereas Randy was very, to the grid, disciplined. Dude could fucking triple track his guitar solos and all of that stuff, right? So it's like I'm kind of learning both sides of the coin, and what I loved about Randy's solos was that they were so logical and so mathematical, and that's me, right? As anyone who knows me, I like my numbers and all of that. So okay, so that's the guitar bit, but also there's this voice next to it, which I know I had heard right before, and I guess at the beginning I didn't really think much of it because I think the first time I saw or heard an Ozzy Osbourne song and knew it was him, I was watching MTV and I Just Want You came on, right? And I now come to know that that's a really cool song, right? Skunk, you and I have talked about this a few times, but it's like for that to be like your first, it was also kind of a similar thing with like Van Halen and hearing like Can't Stop Loving You, like all kind of these older guys, and they were sort of in their softer the softer side of their 90s phase. I'm like, and like same thing with like Eric Clapton, Tears in Heaven, and then people try and tell you, oh yeah, Clapton was this badass in the 60s, and you're like, what, really, this guy? So anyway, from there I kind of went backwards, and it really what it was is like I would just catch stray videos here and there on YouTube, and so I saw Iron Man, and of course that was on Beavis and Butthead, and the eternal riff, right? So it starts kind of filling in the gaps. I didn't really start getting into Black Sabbath until I was maybe, I don't know, like a sophomore in high school. Yeah.
Welcome, Blaine. He made it.
Hello. Yeah.
Blaine Matte, everybody.
Yes.
Howdy. Glad to be here. Talking some Sabbath and Ozzy, mate. This is really weird. Sorry to cut you off, Tim. We were trying to get Blaine in here, but yeah, it's weird because I'm looking at the live stream, trying to make sure we're live streaming, which it looks like we are. Dave, okay. I sent you a link, by the way. But it's weird because it's laggy and not in real time, and I'm just all kinds of all over the place. Anyway, Tim was saying how now he was getting into Sabbath. But Tim, I want to come back around to guitar players because Randy, obviously, huge influence for me. Same with Zakk Wylde, same with Shaky Lee, all those guys, of course. But you're one of those guys that really, I guess if push came to shove and you were put on the spot and had to pick one of Ozzy's three guitarist players, you're that rare guy that would go with Shaky Lee, right? Is that true?
Yes. Yeah, I'm the...
Right, get the fuck off the podcast. No, I'm serious. Shaky Lee's awesome. We all love Shaky Lee.
Well, and Jake, he thankfully he hasn't passed yet, although someone attempted, we know what happened to him not too long ago. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'm sort of the bit of a, not on purpose, but I guess a bit of a contrarian in that regard. But that was only after, but that was like after many years of like, okay, now I've like discovered kind of all of Ozzy's catalog and really dug into his different guitarists and kind of, learning the ins and outs of each of them.
Before we get back to the Sabbath influence, I want to let Dave take over here for a minute because Dave and I have a very special Ozzy bond, and it really does revolve around 1980s big hair, Ozzy Osbourne, and I forget the name of the VHS video that we rented it. It was a I mean, I had just gotten into metal and all this stuff and guitar and a freshman year in high school, and we went and rented this video. I was the worst person to introduce you to some of the music that I introduced you to. Some of the music. I mean, it was very but back then it was like Poison and Metallica. They were all lumped together. Everybody just got those in their Columbia House cassette tape orders, but anyway, we got, I forget what it was called, but it was the Ultimate Ozzy. The Ultimate Ozzy with, I guess on the heels of the Ultimate Sin stuff and the Ultimate Sin tour. So yeah, I'll let you take that, Dave. Tell that story at our own expense.
I will leave a lot of the details out. So we went to Hastings to date ourselves. How long ago that was? And rented.
Not Sam Goody.
No. This was okay. This was back in the day. And rented the Ultimate Ozzy. A video that I honestly haven't seen since that night, and hadn't seen it prior to. Sorry, I've been around a bunch of sawdust today, so pardon the coughing.
Doing manly things with that sawdust.
Yeah, Dave does manly stuff. Just to clarify that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a great thing to say before I continue this. So, if I'm not mistaken, I believe my older sister was out with her boyfriend Brad, such a cool guy and way cooler than my brother-in-law David. And so you and I were at the house watching the Ultimate Ozzy. It was our first dip into the Ozzy pool. Not the best first dip, as I have said a couple times prior to. I'm not sure how someone can get that fat and do that much cocaine at the same time. It was an interesting, very spangly version of Ozzy. But I will say this: there was a lot of Jakey Lee, which I don't think gets nearly enough credit for the contributions that he made to this music in general. But to continue that story, we also rented some Nintendo games. I believe we rented Jeopardy, and we watched a part of Silence of the Lambs, and then we had cold potatoes. So.
Yeah.
I mean, what more could you want from a long weekend? You know,
frankly, it was a life-changing night for me. Yeah, I mean,
what's
that
funny
at the time was like the coolest thing I'd ever seen, man. I was just on I was grew up with the metal satanic, didn't really know a whole lot, never watched a lot of MTV, and then that to me it was just like, oh wow, like
and
awesome.
that was funny. That was in like Ozzy's, even his self-admitted like his like Liberace period with the stage outfits.
Yeah. Very.
I mean, basically, in that video, because like I've seen some of it, and it's like, I mean, he's pretty much dressed like everybody's Long Island aunt, like
analogy, yeah.
He's just missing like a pearl necklace, right, and some, yeah. Anyhow,
it was so what's funny is I kind of want to go back and watch it again now, just to kind of put a bow tie on the whole thing. With so much that has been on every podcast and every influencer that has anything to do with music, it's been Ozzy and Sabbath overload for a couple of days, and rightfully so. I'm not complaining about any of it. But what's funny is that you listen to this music and you see how he was at the forefront of every time this genre changed. So I think, Skunk, when you put it in words yesterday about he was there at the beginning whenever blues gave birth to rock, it's funny because as the 80s came in and he left Sabbath and started doing his own thing, even as the 80s, continued to go, he was always there with whatever was the it thing. And then No More Tears came out and just blew my head off. That was the I don't think anybody saw that one coming. Sorry. Definitely a far cry from.
But at the same time, wasn't really chasing trends. I wouldn't call Ozzy like a trend chaser. He's still doing his own thing, but still metal. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Don't misunderstand me.
It was just the fashion that got him, really.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
The fashion and the cocaine was.
It happened to everybody. ZZ Top. It happened to them all.
No, but it was definitely. I was talking to my mom yesterday because every time some music person passes away, regardless of genre, she always reaches out. Our senior year in high school, that was when Eazy-E died, and my mom will remind me of that a lot, an odd amount for my mom. She's like, "Hey, remember when Eazy died?" Yeah, I do, Mom.
She was probably relieved.
Yeah, but so she sends me a text yesterday. It's like, "Oh my God, I didn't realize how young he was," and like it's because he looked like he was 100. I mean, he lived 100 years and as many years as he was alive. So it was when you start talking about it, start thinking about it, and start reminiscing about the times that when we first started playing instruments and learning these songs incorrectly, but they were still, to us, they were awesome. And I remember watching you learn Crazy Train and the Crowley solo and all these things, and I was like, this is amazing. And looking back and listening back, 'cause don't forget I still have all that on cassette. And seeing kind of where we began our musical journey, Ozzy was always at the forefront of that. So it was great to be able to see some of this. It's sad that this is what's bringing it to us, but to see everybody find that universal love for all the stuff that he did was pretty amazing.
Well, I think universal is an appropriate word, just because he is one of those few. Because his sound and his band's evolved over the years, but it's like pretty much anybody who's into some kind of metal, like if someone calls themselves a metalhead and they want to talk and they want to say they want to talk trash about Ozzy or sort of dismiss him or what, it's like I don't think they can be trusted. Do you know
metalheads? Do you know metalheads that talk trash on Ozzy? That's
probably,
like,
man. It's
sacrilege.
Like they don't like, they don't like the Beatles. I'm not hearing that, man.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. You can find metalheads that pretty much every other giant in metal. Metallica has their group of haters. Megadeth, whatever, Priest, Maiden, like
Yeah,
that.
but it's
no one's.
it's like liking prog music by saying King Crimson is trash. It doesn't. The two things can't be true at the same time. Like they are the Godfathers. I mean, like
Although I would say it's funny actually. The criticism around Ozzy, which which interestingly enough is never directed at Ozzy himself. It's people who would criticize maybe some of the more like commercial, like pop culture aspects of it, and instead they're like, oh well, that's just Sharon pulling the strings, and it's like, look, never met Sharon Osbourne, probably never will. I mean, they've done some shady business things over the years, right? But by and large, it's like for her to knowing that she's going to be the one who like catches shit for any sort of bad or supposedly distasteful things having to do with Ozzy. I mean, that takes a certain amount of courage, certainly more than what most people have, right?
Yeah. So it's mostly the music aside is sort of, but
they're like people. But on the other hand, it's funny because it's like, I mean, they were good business. I mean, yeah, the TV show, was that my cup of tea? No, but
yeah.
Now all of a sudden after the TV show, like my mom's talking about it, and she's like even going and listening to his music, and she's like, oh, I love this and that and whatever else, and it's like that's the point of things like that, right? You know?
Yeah,
it just doesn't stop. I mean, I was thinking about this. You have Zeppelin, you have Pink Floyd, you have Beatles, all these guys. Very, very short spans, right? The classic rock. I mean, Ozzy just kept on and on and on and on. Yeah. And if he wasn't doing, if he wasn't in the '80s doing his own thing, and it brought Ozzfest in the late '90s and 2000s, and then the show. I mean, the guy just kept on going, and Sharon was probably a huge part of that. But
yeah,
to keep it moving that long is such a hard thing as an artist, musician, a culture icon, etc. I mean, none of them do it,
Exactly, I would say I don't want to say apologies because I never really did this, but sort of apologies on behalf of the universe to all the other women out there named Sharon, who for the last 25 years have had to deal with like Sharon, like it's. I feel the pain being a guy named Tim and having to deal with the South Park, like Timmy, just people who like find that sort of thing funny. But yeah,
I was just gonna draw a parallel with the whole, with Ozzy and Metallica. I mean, the thing is like it or hate it, right? They're always relevant. They're always in the news, and it's either something you love or it's something you hate. And it's easy to just go like, Metallica was great until the Black Album, and Ozzy was great in Black Sabbath and everything else, or he was great with Randy Rhoads and everything else. Whatever, right? Things change, styles change, people come and go, the world changes, all these things. But the key is like to have that longevity, right? I mean, whether it's Sharon or whoever, Metallica's management. I mean, there's a lot of factors working there. There's a big, I guess for lack of a better term, it's sort of a mechanism machine with someone like Ozzy at the face of it, but like. It keeps those things relevant. So whether you whether you liked or didn't like the Osbournes didn't really matter. It made them even bigger. It made him even bigger, right?
Right.
And like you said, it opened up a new audience, just like he always, it's always being reinvention and everything. So I think that's an important thing to always consider when you're talking about these long careers. And of course, they're going to have the not so wise fashion choice 80s moments and stuff like that, but or the St. Anger snare or whatever it may be. But for the most part, it's like, in the end, like at the end of the day, like, is anybody going like, oh, I don't care for that Ozzy guy because of the Osbournes or because of one album he did or one? No, I mean, it's just like, I think it's just like we've seen. And what's amazing and beautiful right now is just the amount. And sure, it was the same, to a degree, I'm sure, with Chris Cornell. And I mean, we all have the ones that hit us the hardest, right? For some people it was Bowie. I mean, for me, it was Tom Petty and Chris Cornell were really, they're all terrible, but Ozzy is just,
that was a rough one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're going way back, but Ozzy is so iconic and so big, and he's been around for so long. I think this one is just like impactful on on a whole other level. We're generational.
We've all stopped arguing for a few minutes, and
that's what's great. That's what I love the most about this. It's like a restore. Thank you, Ozzy, for restoring faith in humanity, if not for just a day or two. You know,
I
so wonderful about this.
But I don't know about.
I'm going to give Ozzy full credit for saving the world. Full credit. Ozzy saved the world.
Over the past 5 years, two things made us do this. Ozzy and before this, it was the Tiger King, and that was the only time that we ever all stopped and collectively agree on something.
Or when the Cowboys lose.
There's always got to be somebody in the midst of the worst.
Birds of a feather. Well, yeah, I mean, I think in that regard, it's like Ozzy was almost like an old pro wrestler, you know, who he kind of like. He reached a point where not only he's a legend, but he realized that part of his duty was to put over the younger guys, right? And I mean, you can go back to Kiss opened for Black Sabbath. Van Halen in '78. That was a very famous tour. They just put out their first. It's funny because it's like Van Halen had just put out their first record. They're a band on the rise. By 1978, Black Sabbath had just released their what at the time was their last album with Ozzy. So it's like you have two bands going in opposite career arcs. But it's like, okay, there's that. Then you have the fabled the Ozzy tour with Metallica in '86 when they put out Puppets, and then you go all the way up to Ozzfest and everything after that. Like he's always been a very like business-wise, he's always been a very giving guy, and he's not someone like he didn't have for whatever money they made, he was never someone who was like kind of up in the ivory tower or like to him it's just to him it seems like the way he viewed it was, okay, I'm just my guy at this point in time. I'm kind of just like, I'm contributing what I can, but I'm part of this bigger thing, right? It's not just that, not just about me. There's an us, because I mean, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always humility in it. I fucking love you all. There was always this just like, he's a broke kid from Birmingham, right? Like
yeah, exactly. Working class. Yeah.
Yeah, but it always came through in his performances. And I remember the first time I saw him, it was just, I mean, he genuinely, you could tell he genuinely loved what he was doing. And, there wasn't, I don't know, we weren't behind the scenes. I'm sure there were some diva moments, no doubt, but like, he always came across genuine, sincere.
Regardless of whatever was going on, he always delivered in a performance, and he was genuine and true in the performance. I think that's why he resonates, I guess, so broadly, so globally with so many millions, probably over the years, that all the years he's been around, billions of people, is because of that, right? And it's a thing that some people have. I think Ozzy just had this innate likeness about him. It's like, there's some interview with Sharon saying why she fell in love with him, and it was just everyone always says he was hilarious, he was fun, he was hilarious. There's the quote about, Jack or somebody asking, Dad, are you on the Osbournes? Well, don't you care that people are laughing at you, and are they laughing with you or laughing at you? And he's like, what does it matter as long as they're laughing, right? And I think it was that genuine in the moment with people, the true desire to love and entertain and make music, like it drove him, and it was his whole universe, despite all the other flaws. That is the connection that he had, and it's kind of, I think, a rare thing for someone to innately be that way and have that, right? The truly great artist, I guess, are the ones.
Well, I mean, he was sort of the, he was the class clown personality type, right? And whether that's whatever that's a reaction to, right? Like why, like, us, like those of us.
Well, part of it with him was dyslexia and learning abilities. I know that was part of it from his book. And him initially, Tony Iommi, he hated him because he was just
Tony Iommi used to beat the crap out of him.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Ozzy was the sort of the odd man out clown, and then it just so happened he was the one with the PA and the drive,
which is funny. That's also how David Lee Roth got into Van Halen. He had his own PA. So aspiring singers out there, invest in a PA, and then a band will, a band will find you. I mean, maybe it's a little different, if you have like places to rent that like have gear there too. But it's like, it's a good, it's always a good start. But I think what was always interesting, what I think was really interesting to me about Ozzy, and like, I mean, yeah, okay, he didn't really write the music. He didn't always write his lyrics. He delivered it, right? But he did have this very sort of, everyman, working class, common touch to him, even though his music was rarely, if ever, sort of explicitly about that. You know what I mean? Like, as compared to compare it to, say, and this isn't.
He wasn't a Bruce Springsteen.
Well, yeah, right. And there's not necessarily a value judgment there, but it's like that's
I'm
part
making
of.
one. There is.
Yeah.
But no, it's like I'm personally, I'm kind of indifferent about Bruce Springsteen. I don't have a high or low opinion about him, but just obviously, like it's so obvious and so overt and so on the nose that he's like, I'm Bruce and I write songs about the working class and the cliches about, oh, this is a song about the factory that shut down and ruined the town, right. and all that, right? I guess that kind of and that was sort of a life that obviously Ozzy and the Sabbath guys lived, right? They grew up in post-war Birmingham, which was just like one of the more depressing places on earth, right? Just nothing but factories and belching smoke and dead-end jobs and
he grew up in a Dickens novel, basically. Yeah, I think he worked in like a watch factory or something like that, and it was just like, and some other guy. I remember I remember reading his book. I think he might have a couple books. The first book, the one I read, I don't remember what it was called, but like it was really great book. Dave, you read that book too, right?
Yeah.
Didn't you read the Ozzy book? Yeah, and it was like in the beginning, it was like I personally thought it was interesting because it really did kind of talk about his childhood and those beginnings and working in a watch factory, and some guy bloke whatever was like, oh yeah, I've been here for all these years and I'm gonna get my I'm gonna get my retirement. My does that, and Ozzy's just like, fuck this shit, and then just quit. But and then they really talked about the early like history of Sabbath, and there was a lot of funny drug stories and all this kind of stuff along the way. What I was a little disappointed in is that when they kind of got, and I think there was some little bit of Randy stuff. Basically nothing. Jake Lee was a blurb at best. Even Zach Wilde, it kind of just sort of trailed off after that, and I felt like it was like, okay, yeah, we get the drug stories and all that. I mean, there were some great ones in there, but the first half of the book is what I think I enjoyed the most, because you did get some background into his upbringing and how the Sabbath started and all that kind of stuff. Do you remember much about that book, Dave? I don't know if any of you other guys read it, but what was your takeaway, Dave?
It's been a long time since I read that, but it's the same. So I read Tony's book last year, maybe year before last, and they're very similar at the beginning. The whole first part of both books are their backstories, talking about how it was just this, post-war England, and they were poor and kind of grew up with nothing. And then it's funny because it does there's so many similarities to all the stories that came out of those guys back then. But from what I remember, you hit it right on the head. It's like it was all this stuff, and then it kind of trails off towards the end, much like Ozzy's conversations, I guess. It starts out great and then it kind of trailed off.
Do they start out great though, or is it always just?
I think they start out great because we're all like, "Oh, what's he gonna say next?" And then he kind of drifts off. But
louder,
yeah. But it was,
that's when you understand him best. It's the only time he can really speak is when he's yelling at an audience, and he's got like three phrases that never get old. Put your goddamn hands together. Yeah. Let me fucking hear you, and God bless you all.
So let me tell you a quick story. So I saw Ozzy in 92, 93 maybe. I was in Wichita, Kansas, and I went to the concert, and it was on like a Wednesday. It was in the middle of the school week. I remember that much. And there's a part right before they play Crazy Trains, like the craziest guy gets to come backstage or whatever, and everyone goes bananas. And there was a guy in the rafters of the auditorium that we were in that had bottle rockets, and he was shooting them like out of his hand down towards the crowd. And Ozzy stops the song. He's like, "Hey man, and get the fuck down. Like you can't be up there. Like you're gonna hurt yourself. You're gonna hurt somebody else." And this guy clearly was the craziest. You get to go backstage. And I always thought, like, this is awesome. I remember calling you and telling you the story. And then
I remember that.
This will also date us, is that that Saturday on the Headbangers Ball, Ozzy was the guest on there, and Ricky asked the question about, stories about people going crazy. And he's told the story because a few nights ago, we were at this place and the guy was shooting fireworks from the rafters. Like, oh my God, I was at that show. How crazy was that? So it made me feel like, hey, I was a part of that. It was really cool. Fast forward several years, you and I went and saw him in Austin at an outdoor venue that is no longer there.
South Park Meadows.
South Park Meadows.
Was that 96? Do you remember what year that was? I
We were out of high school, so it must have been 96, 97. I don't know.
We're going to cut that out. That's when we graduated high school in 2005. That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
You're redacted. Yeah.
But we,
no, it sounds like it was about right. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
We were up front. So we were still young enough to be up front. And he brought out the fire hose. Do you remember this? Because he like starts pointing
Hell
at the crowd.
yeah, dude. It's one of the most awesome moments of my life.
Yeah. And so anytime we were anywhere together, I'm so much shorter than you. Like you just stand out. Like, and so he's pointing and he points right at you and then just unloads this fire hose right at you.
I thought so you thought so here we are this whole time. Skunk was like, oh, Dave has a really gay story about how we were intro to Ozzy, but this right here, Ozzy unloaded his hose on you, just
on his face, and he was so happy to take that load in front of everyone.
I was happy to take that load. I can
No
honestly say
indeed,
I took Ozzy's load. Yep, back what was that now? 30 years ago? Yeah, almost. Yeah. And then I want to talk about
haven't bathed since.
And you
right?
nope. Yeah,
that's
why they call me Skunk. Yeah,
that child is an adult now.
So, well, let's not get carried away. But so Dave, you also saw the farewell. I don't know how many farewell tours there actually were, but wasn't there a farewell tour with an album and the whole nine in like '98 or something? When was that? Because you saw that too, right, Dave?
So on the No More Tears tour was the No More Tours. I saw that one, and then I saw Sabbath's farewell tour in '99. With Pantera opened, and it was at the Summit here in Houston, which is now Lakewood Church, which is bizarre.
Is that Osteen's place, whatever his name is?
Yeah, Joel Osteen. Yeah, it's weird. So I saw Slayer there too. So that's great.
The Summit is a church now.
Yeah. I wonder if that. Hopefully that's the spirits of Slayer and all are haunting.
Yeah, that's what we saw. We saw AC/DC there back in the day, but
that's right.
Yeah,
the Summit. Okay, yeah.
So we my ex got tickets to the show, and they were behind the stage, so they had the backdrops up, and they're like, oh, these tickets are gonna be cheap because you won't be able to see much, but whatever. So we were in the very first row, right behind the stage, and so I think it was Deftones, I think, that played first, and I was like, whatever. I couldn't tell you a Deftones song. Shame on me, I guess. But they had like all the banners and everything, and then as we're watching, like right below where we were sitting, because we're in the very front row, where like the Rockets would run out for basketball games. I look down and Vinnie Paul is standing there, like watching the show. And I'm like, that's cool. It's Vinnie Paul. Check it out. So when Pantera took the stage, they took all the banners down. So they had like, minimum equipment on the stage. Vinnie Paul was right in front of me. Of course, I'm watching him from behind him. But Pantera just blew the doors off. But when Sabbath joined, there was nothing on the stage, and it was a round stage, and so we had front row tickets. It was awesome because they were just kind of moving around the whole time. Now, Bill Ward was still in front of me, and I still saw the back of Bill Ward the entire time, which was
shirt off.
Shirt off, and it basically looked.
Oh yeah,
it basically looked like Bill Ward looks exactly. Bill Ward hasn't changed, if I recall. From your description of him back then, he hasn't changed a bit.
But it was the whole show. It was like every Sabbath song, every one of them. They played them all, and it was just fantastic. They encored with "Fairies Wear Boots," which is my all-time favorite song. And so it was like, what a cool, weird song to encore with, but the whole thing was awesome. And again, that was the second time I saw Ozzy on his last tour. So yeah, anyway, and I saw him 2 more times. So it was.
I hate so much that I didn't.
Yeah, but I ended up seeing Sabbath in 2005.
Yeah.
You did? Man. I'm so mad at myself. I'm sure everyone else has seen Sabbath. When was your first time seeing Blaine or seeing Ozzy? Blaine, was it? It wasn't. Was it that, or was it a different show?
2000. It was Ozzfest. Pantera and Ozzy were Ozzy with his band, Zakk Wylde. Black Label Society played. Awesome show. Had the fire hose. that was my first Ozzy. I was 17 at the time. Date myself there. But yeah, man, it was.
Blaine was always the
yeah,
baby
blew-
of us all. When we met, you were like 21 or something, dude. You were pretty young, I think.
Yeah, I was early 20s probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, incredible. I mean, it was just, man, it's just nothing like it. I mean, but I was a Sabbath fan growing up, and so it was always wanted to see Sabbath. Didn't get to. I thought maybe my chance was up. Who would have thought they would have played? I ended up seeing them in 2005. Who would have thought they would have played? 20 years later. Didn't see that coming. But man, did you guys watch the whole performance?
Dude, I actually still have it. I never closed the window, and last night I actually watched because I still hadn't seen it all. I'd like watched it over the course of like 3 days because it's so freaking long. And last night I actually watched the Metallica performance, which I hadn't seen yet, and rewatched Ozzy and Black Sabbath, but like a little more in tune to it, obviously under a different perspective. And yeah, man, it's like
it was
what can you
I don't
say?
know. It was great. How do you just going out on top? I mean, I when Ozzy died, I wanted to be sad, but I could. It was like Elway going, winning the Super Bowl and retiring. Like he went out on top. It was great. I thought the whole thing was awesome. I mean, it's
certainly going to add to the already legendary status, the way that all panned out. And I think it's like even more commendable because I feel like you could see it anyway, but now it really kind of affirms it. It's just like that guy, whatever all the awful stuff he was going through the last few years and surgeries and Parkinson's and just all that, to want to do that so bad, props to Tom Morello, to Sharon Day, all the people that organized it and made that massive thing happen. Everybody lucked out. Everything worked. The live stream worked. The weather was great, et cetera, et cetera. It was just a phenomenal event that I've read it was the highest grossing charity event of all time, or concert, I suppose. But yeah, and I mean, just watching Ozzy, it was like beautiful and sad at the same time, watching him perform and seeing it all. But
I think it's hard to see that our heroes age, right? So like they're always like, when I think of musicians or actors, anybody that we look up to, and I always picture them in their iconic role, or their like when the first time I saw Ozzy was in like 92 or 93, I think it was. I remember him on that tour. I remember what he looked like. And then as they age, it's like, oh man, it's tough to see. Phil Collins was the same way. Like the last shows you saw him where he couldn't really move. He was sitting down. It's like, oh, okay, that's why you're not going to do this anymore, because you physically can't do it.
Yeah.
But it was good to see Ozzy do it in a very Ozzy way. Like, he was going to go out there and just leave it all on the stage. And I haven't
still had all the Ozzyisms. Like, even though he was like strapped to a chair, he did all those things that we love. And it's the kind of things that you simultaneously joke about and make fun of. It's like you become, when you're that level of iconic, you kind of become a parody of yourself. And like, I'm sure these artists have to know that, right? Like, they all have the little catchphrases. It's the way great impersonationists, whatever the fuck, do that, right? You grab these little sound bites, and we all know the Ozzy sound bites, but it was like, so it was awesome to see, and he's doing the wave and he's doing things, but you could tell he just wanted to get up and move and do the Ozzy shuffle, and he just, it sucked. But yeah, man, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah. No. I mean, I did. Yeah, that's part of it. Is just, the reminder of mortality when you see stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know. The fact that they got to do it and the timing is just crazy. I don't know if anything's ever happened like that I can remember in music, where somebody does this, this huge send off and
well, maybe Live Aid. Like, how far after the Live Aid, the iconic Live Aid?
That's a good point. He was
Freddie Mercury.
Yeah, he was sick though, right? He was. I mean,
but I don't know if everybody knew it at the time or not.
That took a lot longer, because Live Aid was 85 and Freddie died.
Oh, it was a lot longer.
Freddie died in 91. Yeah, the Bohemian Rhapsody movie plays fast and loose with that timeline. They kind of made, for dramatic effect, they made it seem like those events were closer to each other, and I haven't even seen that movie, but yeah, I you're right, there's definitely a gap of a timeline there, but that's certainly an iconic. At the time, maybe people didn't know he was sick, maybe that was the thing, or did they? I don't know. Like, I think that's what made that one so special, is then you
maybe on the heels of that found out what was happening, and then you know had to watch this icon deteriorate away. But there's all that that sad poetic things that happen with these artists, like David, sort of like David Bowie's last album, and like, these guys that like they know they're dying. Like Ozzy knew he was dying. I feel like he had to make it through that concert. And when it was done, it was like, I did it. I gave back. I performed one last time. My whole family was there, like extended family, like this.
Yeah, he got to see his daughter get engaged in this thing.
All that stuff, you know, pretty amazing, man.
Yeah, it almost feels staged. I'm not going to suggest it was, but I mean, I just think that's how kind of special the whole thing was.
Yeah.
You know, like.
Yeah, it's like not everything's a conspiracy theory, right? I mean, I guess if someone could put one together, maybe Sharon Osbourne could, but I think sometimes there is just you know, coincidence in the universe, you know, and things sort of line up in the way that they should. And it sort of adds to the romanticism of the entire legacy of all of it, you know. What were you saying?
Yeah.
I was going to say, Skunk, be careful what you know, and I know this, you're not someone I'd accuse of this, but you know, don't throw Sharon Osbourne and conspiracy in the same sentence, you know, you rabid anti-Semite. But
I mean, hey man, I went, you know, I got politically heated. Well, I'm going to make a few announcements.
We're 41 minutes in. I my bet was going to be sooner.
Well, now that we're on this, look, here's the thing. I want to mention several things at this point. Okay, timestamp that so that I can share this clip if we get anything out of this podcast. Shameless promo on the heels of our beloved Ozzy passing. Like yes. So yes, I have once in a while I go a little political on Facebook, like some of us do. What I thought was beautiful from that is really, like most people, like this is the whole point that I want to do this, and the whole reason to talk about Ozzy Osbourne, because I think like there are genuine people, like this is humanity. This is humanity at its core in a way. Dave, quit laughing at me. This is like,
I'm laughing.
Wipe that smirk off your face.
Because I thought it was I was saying the 15-minute marker, something was going to get political. So
we're not getting political. Okay. We're not getting political. That's the thing. We're not getting political. So my point of all this is, well, there's a couple of things. First of all, people may notice, you know, Vic is not here. Vic may pop in a little bit later. But we're almost at 100 episodes. Hopefully we'll do something special for that. I know we've got one more coming up, and then I'm going to try to do something really cool for 100. So this is actually our 98th episode of Eclectic Soundtrax podcast. Tim has co-hosted once with me before when we had ZZ Ward on. That's a great episode. And then I also had Adam Kirby, aka Charlie Marlowe, guest hosted when we had Madeline Hamilton, the bagpipes player that played at Skunk Fest last year on. And I'm kind of extending offers. I think it would make sense with Dave because we've been very long running friends. Iron Woodworks, we work together. I can't thank you enough for all the amazing things you've done for me over the years and for Skunk Fest. Building a freaking stage, building the skunk, I should have put that in here. I should add that to the aesthetic background of the podcast instead of Beanie Babies and a fucking, what is this thing? A sea lion pillow. Maybe you know. So anyway, I at least tried to get a record in, and there's the Runescarred album way in the back, and the double day guitar that I got recently, a few Tragans, blah blah blah. Anyway, but like Tim and I have been having some political conversations, and I love it. And I think I think Vic got tired of this with me kind of ranting around sort of in the COVID days, but you know, to have political discussion that's not heated, that's not aggressive, and to actually listen to other people, gee, what a concept, you know, and have civil discussion. I think my message, and I think that's what Ozzy gave us. Ozzy did it with a few simple words. I tend to just blab on endlessly, but the point is like we're trying to achieve unification of people, not division of people. So there's my little spiel on that. On the heels of that, I'd like to mention that is the whole purpose of Skunk Fest, which I have done for, I don't know, it started in 2018. There was a few dead years there. Like I said, Dave's been a big part of it, helping with Iron Woodworks and the construction and everything. Tim, obviously, we play together in a Good Rogering, in Runescarred. We've been on the stage together many times. And Blaine, who way back in the Quarter Shackle days when we met and did that, Blaine was one of the original members of A Good Rogering, who co-wrote songs on the first record, and who came back and guested on some stuff when we did a 10-year anniversary of that album, Long Overdue. So we played, that was back in 2020, right? Yeah, that was right before COVID. Thank God we did it early in that year.
Right.
And we had a blast doing that. And so we're about to kind of make an announcement on this, but I'm honestly, I think we all are, man. I'm so excited that we're going to be playing. And we had already planned this before we got the tragic news about Ozzy passing. I had already had this idea and everybody was on board because of the Back to the Beginning concert, and just that this is, you know, not that far. Skunk Fest is not that far away from this, coming up on September 6th at Come and Take It Live in Austin. We're going to make this an Ozzy Sabbath tribute. That doesn't mean every band's going to be playing Ozzy songs. We had already intended to play a Sabbath song, so I think we're going to do a little bit of, not a whole set, but we're going to do a little bit of a tribute there. And Blaine is going to be joining us back in AGR for the full set. He's going to be back on stage. He was in the latest video, Overcome, which still hasn't come out, but the song is out. And we've got another tune. We did a Tool cover together. We did a cover of Sweat with our dear friend Adam singing, who's also been playing with us too. So it's going to be a whole new roster. And I personally am just like, I'm more excited about A Good Rogering now than I've been in quite a while. So I'm just saying this is in a very sincere manner. I think it's kind of a cool, the way things have kind of come together. And for us as musicians and longtime friends, I'm very excited to present A Good Rogering in this form at Skunk Fest. And I think having this conversation with all of you now, it's like, it's you know, it sounds corny, but it's like really, really special to me. And I want to make it, even though it's not nearly the kind of money that someone like Ozzy or a lot of other people can raise, if we can raise a little bit of money for flood victims, I want to do it. If we can, you know, be positive and have everybody come together and forget about their fucking politics for a few minutes and just enjoy music collectively, like what it's supposed to be, what metal and community does. And I think that's all I want to say. That's all I'm trying to, that's the sappy part of this podcast where I'm putting it all together. But yeah, anyway, I'm really excited about this show. The band's on the bill. I think there's going to be some cool little Ozzy treats in there. We're certainly going to present a few things. So thanks to all you guys. And I'm really excited about this Skunk Fest this year.
Cheers to that. Yeah. Excited to join you guys. Excited to be playing some Sabbath and Ozzy and tributing those guys. Like they should.
Also, I wasn't going to give this away, but I am going to be dressed up as 1986 Ozzy. Yes. I'm working on my bloatedness at the moment. So yeah, we'll see how that goes.
You'll also be snorting some ants. Well.
Snorting ants. Yeah. That was one of the good. That was in that book, the Motley Crue, the famous. Motley Crue
was it actually? Snorting. Is that a? I never knew.
No, I'm pretty sure that's a real story. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been. It was in the dirt from the Motley Crue angle, but it was also an Ozzy story. Right. So it was absolutely true.
And it was probably in a hit parader once upon a time that
Dave
has in his closet somewhere.
Mick Wall at Kerrang.
Yeah. I'm
gonna die. Anyway, so we invite everybody to get in the ring for moving forward, this is it. We're gonna be civil, everything's great and wonderful. We're all gonna unify, and then after that, we're going to have guest hosts on the podcast, and we're going to do nothing but argue about political rhetoric that we really know nothing about. So
enjoy it. This is the Ozzy twilight here. It's not going to last long, you fuckers.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Ozzy, for making us civil to each other for a few days in your memorandum. Anywho, so we didn't really tell many Ozzy stories. I guess we talked about his. So, Dave, you and I went to the one where we got blasted, where Ozzy blew his load on me.
It wasn't we, it was you.
It was me. But you got some, you got some residuals, right? So a little spilled on you.
So when I saw him in Kansas, Zach Wilde hit me in the face with a beer can. That was.
I remember this story.
Back when he was drinking, and he was drinking a Budweiser Tall Boy, and he kind of points the crowd, says, "This Bud's for you." Took a big drink and just yeeted it right at me. And again, I'm like not very tall, so the whole crowd kind of moved and it went right here. So.
Everybody else saw it coming. They just moved out of the way.
Like, and that's not like a Zach Wilde beer can fastball. That's not some like namby-pamby, I don't know, like Joe Elliott from Def Leppard or like Vince Neil, like like a little. wimpy toss.
It wasn't underhand. Let's just put it that way.
I don't think Vince Neil could throw anything without falling over out of wind. I think Vince Neil would pass out if he had to exert that much energy.
Yeah, his center of gravity has evolved over the years, to say the least.
That's why Motley Crue didn't perform in Birmingham, because like they literally couldn't get Vince Neil on a plane or a boat without it, crashing into the ocean or sinking into the depths thereof. So it feels good to shit on Vince Neil for no good reason. Dave loved. We've discussed this before, but I got to throw out the best Dave quote of all time. This was when first started high school.
First of all, it's out of context. It's out of context. It's out of context.
It is.
It's out of context. That's why it's funny, because it's out of context. Because I know what you're going to say. Go ahead.
No, yeah, it was brilliant. It was amazing because I didn't know anything. I mean, dude, to be fair, I was showing up with Too Short written on my book cover. I'll concede that to you. We'll just assume that I wrote it. I loved Digital Underground, so apparently anything in the Bay Area that was rap, I liked. Something
Tim was saying at the very beginning about seeing that girl at school and kind of how they dressed and blah blah blah. I said Ozzy shirt. The day I met Skunk. And I'll tell you this story so you can tell my ridiculous out of context quote about Motley Crue. He had on
a wearing JNCOs.
Oh God, I wish that was a little later. He was wearing Air Jordan sweatpants and he was wearing an Air Jordan t-shirt.
I stand behind that. Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. My son wears that now, so that's we're dressed.
Yeah, like and I was your son's age. So it wasn't me. I'm not a mob boss. I wasn't wearing a tracksuit when I was 45.
No, but you're more than welcome to explain what I was wearing that day. I was wearing I believe it was a Motley Crue t-shirt and some cut off jorts and my Asics wrestling shoes. And I didn't wrestle, but I had the shoes. But he had Too Short written on his book cover in Miss Sampson's English class. And I was handwritten? Handwritten, with the dollar sign. Oh. And so I had this was the second day of school. My first day I had my schedule changed, and so I had to walk into Miss Sampson's class on day 2. There's only one desk left. It's the last seat in the second to last row, because the last seat last row is Mr. Manhattan. And I'm like, all right, so I'm gonna sit next to this dude. I mean, buzz cut, Jordaned out, and I'm like, huge mullet, Crue, jorts. This guy's a nerd. I'm gonna sit next to him. And a week later, I guess.
You were like Jake the Snake meets John Cena. I don't know what was going on. But you were wrestled out.
Jake
Cena.
But a week later, maybe 2 weeks later, I look over, and on his book cover on the back, he had written out the lyrics to the Humpty Dance, which is a banger to this day. And I was like, Digital Underground fan. And so that's how we became friends. Because I didn't like him. He didn't like me. We were like polar opposites. I was that weird kid. He was
the heavy metal guy. I was the rap guy.
So in the late '80s Hollywood movie version of this, who are the actors playing you guys? Like, Dave, if you've got the mullet, sounds like maybe like the kid who played like Bobby Budnick on Salute Your Shorts, the kid who was Eddie Furlong's friend in Terminator 2.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
David Spade.
Those are good.
Yeah.
I'll take
and who plays?
Remembering what I looked like back then, I was definitely not.
Oh, I know, Danny McBride.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
I was skinny back then, though. I don't know if Danny McBride would, but maybe.
Yeah, I could.
Yeah. Well, you could have been, maybe Emilio Estevez. Kind of the short haircut.
I'll take that. I don't.
The athletic wear. Yeah.
Yeah, but like Breakfast Club. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, wrestler. Yeah, and Andrew, whatever his last name was, his character, I don't recall, but
yeah, it was.
Yeah, my dad used to put cigarettes out on me. Oh, that's going to be out of context. That was a weird Breakfast Club Emilio Estevez reference. That was weird.
With that one, that was great.
Talk about like confirming your age. Okay, so now I'm completely lost. I'm fantasizing myself as Emilio Estevez. It's weird. Give me a minute.
Because then you get then you get to make out with Ali Sheedy. That's not bad.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, I would take that. So anyway, so now that Dave prefaced all this with wrestling shoes and Air Jordans,
and what again, was great I want to say that this quote is out of context. So
there's nothing wrong with it. It's funny. Like,
it's hilarious,
fast forward. I think this is the next year, right? And I'm kind of like figuring out like okay, so there's this band, all this stuff that I missed out on, like in, I guess we're talking late 80s, early, probably like 90, 91 right now. And I never had the like, sort of like, I really was in the like, heavy metal satanic and, kind of had the safe rap, and then was a kid, got discovering the sort of like the Eazy-E, Tee-Hee, like, rap and all these kind of things. And I had some classic rock tapes that my parents had listened to. I'd heard a little bit of this and that, but I didn't really know music. I didn't know it was current. And this is when everything started exploding for me. And like, me, really, it was someone else bringing over Appetite for Destruction. That tape changed my entire life. I'll never forget to this day, walking in my brother's room when him and his friend, who are younger than me at the time, I was probably 13 maybe, and hearing that and going, oh, what is this? That heavy metal? Because like you said, Tim, it's just I hear guitars and it's like, I'm just like, oh, that's metal. Oh, what is that? Scary satanic metal. And Ozzy, I thought Ozzy was satanic. That was the narrative to sell back then, right? And it helped with all the publicity, I'm sure. Iron Maiden, satanic,
Yeah. Who we know as Skunk's mom today. I guess she must have taken you in as a foster, because apparently you grew up in Tipper Gore's house in the 80s.
Yeah, no, it wasn't my mom. I don't think it was so much my mom. I just think it was just, I just don't think we knew. I think, I don't know, for whatever reason, I feel like I kind of got that narrative from my dad. And then we were small town bumpkin kids. And then we moved to College Station, which is like a slight upgrade in the bumpkin world. And then, especially back then, there wasn't a whole lot going on. And then, there was like MTV was just like, I want to say it wasn't allowed, but not really. And I remember when I did start getting into it, and it was right at that time where just grunge met rock was the most, aside from the late 60s, I think the late 60s and the early 90s are like the greatest times in the history of cultural musical movements, right? At least probably for, our generations, you just say that. I mean, I guess if you're 900 years old, you would say, well, Glenn Miller, but for us, right? And so like, we were like,
turn that Glenn Miller down.
Everything was
Satanist Glenn Miller.
Everything was Ozzy at one point. At one point, Glenn Miller was Ozzy, and then Elvis was Ozzy, and then Ozzy was Ozzy, and then Marilyn Manson was Ozzy, and now nobody gives a fuck because everything's crazy. But like, the crazy train truly has gone off the rails, and it's like I can go watch anything on the internet I want to on a whim, so nothing's gonna offend anybody, or everything's gonna offend everybody. Take your pick. So anyway, blah de blah. Where the fuck? How do we get this train back to Dave's stupid comment?
We don't. We don't have to.
Motley Crue.
We don't.
The Crew.
Leave it alone.
Right. So I didn't know a lot of this stuff. So when I did hear Guns N' Roses, and then it was just like, oh my God. And I wanted to play guitar. I started playing guitar the next year. Dave and we've told this story on older podcasts where he was playing on cardboard boxes and a broom, literally as a drum kit. And I had my $90 guitar amp combo. And when you hear what we recorded, it is the worst shit in the world, but it was unbelievably, it was awesome. It was fun.
Do you still have it?
Oh yeah.
I've got all it exists. It's actually, Dave stuck a very, on the first,
get my hands on that.
On the first Dave podcast, which was, I think, one of the first podcasts we ever, like number 4 or 5 or something, 3, 4, 5, somewhere in there. There's at the very end of the podcast, you can, there's a little sample of it. It's fucking, it's horrible. It's Inner Sandman and I think Paradise City, maybe those two, or maybe just Paradise City.
I think it was just Paradise City, because in the Inner Sandman, we played the intro to that song repeatedly until
I think your sister destroyed that tape.
She at one point she opens the door to the garage because we're playing at full volume in the middle of the afternoon, and she screams at us, and I've got all of that somewhere, but I have hours of us playing from
it's like the White Album sessions, just reams and reams of tape of all these outtakes.
Yes.
And,
but let's get more specific. Tell them about your high tech recording device that we used.
Oh yeah, so I had this like a console stereo that was my grandfather's that had, you could load a cassette, but you had to load it like a VCR like from the top. And like you could record on it, but you had to use a mic. And so we had like this cheap mic we would plug into it. But whenever you would like record it, you hit play, it would kind of wind real fast. So at the beginning and end of literally everything we recorded, you hear this whoop, and then it would kick in, and it was all the fuzz and all the air around us. And it would pick up everything. And so it picked up the whisk broom I was using as a hi-hat, and the several 12x12 cardboard boxes that I was using.
Now, at that point, did you have the one symbol? Did you have the one cymbal that upon the very first hit it cracked?
So
The very
no,
first
that was
hit,
after
Dave hits the cymbal and it cracked.
that was after I got that set of drums from Ralph.
And tell them about your kick drum pedal.
Which I still have. I still have it. And I wish I still had the pedal. It was a Ludwig Speed Kings, awesome pedal, but I didn't have a mallet for it. And instead of buying a mallet, which would cost nothing, I just went in the garage and got a Phillips head screwdriver and a whole shitload of cotton balls that I stole from my sister and some green duct tape and taped it on there. And it was a beast because it was a screwdriver. So it dented that head like instantly, but I still have it. It was just basic 5-piece kit, but I went to the same place you got your guitar and amp combo, and bought a
Guitar shop.
The guitar shop, the guitar shop, I believe is how they pronounce it.
The guitar shop.
And bought
this is the guitar for you. Sorry, go.
I bought a 12-inch splash that was razor thin and made a stand out of some PVC pipe and some bitchin' bandanas that I probably also stole from my sister. And on its maiden voyage, and it just dented. Like it just dented immediately. And then the second hit, it cracked it. And I still have that because why wouldn't I keep that? So
I'm going to segue back now to the story. And Dave blamed Metallica for that apparently because so here we are, freshmen in high school, and we're sitting there. And like I said, I don't really know stuff. So I'm kind of like, but Dave, when I went over to Dave's house and then I tried to replicate this and I got lazy. So I covered like a wall and a half and gave up. But remember my brother's room was all posters everywhere. That was the thing. Like we all had all the band names written on in the logos on our book covers. We had all the posters all over our walls, but you were the original, like Dave, like,
they were on my ceiling
way back. But I meant he had posters everywhere, all these bands I'd never heard of. And since your stepdad was like a district manager of Hastings, like you got all this cool stuff and you knew tons about music and you had all these so I was just like in awe, right? And I didn't know any better between like Metallica or Poison. I really it was all kind of like metal. And so I did the Columbia House thing and I like had great albums like Ride the Lightning and even greater albums like Look What the Cat Dragged In. And I was just sort of figuring all this stuff out. And so one day I'm asking Dave, I'm just like, so hey, what do you think about Metallica? And should I let you say it?
Yeah,
straight from the horse's mouth.
Straight from the horse's mouth.
Say it
again.
Say it what you said.
Out of context. Yeah. But I was also probably fucking with you. And
you loved, dude. You loved, just like I love, and I still admit I love Skid Row. You loved Motley Crue.
I still love Skid Row.
Nothing wrong with that.
There is a lot wrong.
Nothing wrong with Motley Crue's pretty good.
This was whatever. Anyway, so in my, 12, 13-year-old brain, I said, and I quote, I don't like Metallica. They are a cheap imitation of Motley Crue. One of the dumbest things I've ever said. Ever, and I own it. I admit it, but
that's great.
I will also say that I owned 0 Metallica albums when I said that. 0.
And to be fair, you probably did not own 2 short albums, so
also true. But I will also say that it was probably a week later that I went and bought Lightning and Puppets and I was like, well, I should never have said that. And the thing is that was 40 years ago and we still talk about it. So it's like, hey, remember that time you said that Metallica was, I remember saying it.
First of all, Dave,
that was not one of your more erudite moments. No.
First of all, it was only 35 years ago. Okay. Secondly, right. Let's talk. This whole thing made me think about favorite albums. This is not a Metallica podcast, but Tim, speaking of Metallica, I think yours is And Justice. We all have our favorite album. Let's talk Ozzy. What are favorite? Do you have a favorite Ozzy and or Sabbath album, Tim?
Yeah. So favorite Ozzy album. Probably if we're front to back, it's probably. Because we talked about the Jakey Lee Contrarian, I'd almost say Bark at the Moon, but what's a little more, but I find Diary of a Madman to be a little more consistent beginning to end, so that probably gets the nod for me. Favorite Ozzy Sabbath album is probably Volume 4 with Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, and Sabotage like tied for second, or like, Volume 4 is 1A and those two are like 1B and 1C or whatever. But that particular run, like the mid years Ozzy, where like they like could start to afford the drugs, but not. They couldn't afford so much drugs that it started negatively impacting the music, like it kind of did later on with like Never Say Die and Technical Ecstasy. But yeah, those would be those are all at the top of my heap.
What about you, Blaine?
I think Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, all of that early Sabbath stuff. I lean more Sabbath than I do Ozzy. Definitely, I mean, love No More Tears. Don't get me wrong, love like the Randy Rhoads, some of the Randy Rhoads stuff. But Sabbath is really where it kind of lies for me. So Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, Paranoid, Black Sabbath, all of those. It's hard to pick one, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd almost say that Ozzy's solo stuff is probably is maybe a little better for us guitar geeks, right? Or at least it's flashier, right? But yeah, I think as like what's more fun to experience as a band and to play as a band together, I think Sabbath, because they were more of a band. It wasn't it's like they were kind of greater than the sum of their parts. Sabbath stuff is fun to play as a band, and all the twists all the twists and turns, in the arrangements and things like that.
It's that great balance. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I Geezer is probably a top 5 bass player for me too. He's amazing. It was awesome seeing him. He didn't lose a beat. He
was awesome on that.
He was fantastic
show,
on the last show. I wish he would do some more stuff. But to your point, Tim, it is more. It's rock and it's metal, but it's rock and roll. There's one guitar. It's not quite that. The 80s hadn't got here yet, where it's like Guitar Hero stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It just I tend to kind of that genre, that's old late 60s, to your point earlier, Skunk, that late 60s, early 70s stuff kind of really does it for me.
Yeah, and I really think there was a lot. People can trash the 70s with disco or whatever was trending at the time, right? Just like, I mean, every decade kind of has its thing, I guess. But like, there was a lot of brilliant albums and brilliant music throughout the 70s. And, constant, there always is. But I think there was these I can't think of like just the cultural movement that happened at those times, right? The perfect storm where it just seemed like everything coming out in the early 90s was phenomenal. But
it felt like it was sort of the birth, very early on, there were no rules, weren't a lot of stuff to emulate. There was the blues and stuff, but I mean, I don't know, that it kind of a special time for that reason. It's just, it was kind of like a blank canvas, and I don't know. I think the further they go along, it's kind of harder to think, of an original idea. People talk about that a lot, is like, okay, well, so it's just kind of interesting. I can't imagine putting myself back then, whenever there was so little in a world of, Spotify, where you can literally have access to everything. You feel like everything's been done. I'm not a fatalist to really think that, but in some sense it's true. Like there's been so much done, and back then it was really a blank canvas.
Yeah. The one thing back to the Sabbath not versus Ozzy, but just the difference in the sort of the dynamic of the bands. And Sabbath was more that 70s rock, jam, but a little more refined and moving into this darker territory. And, both themes, a lot of credit due to that lyrically, Geezer Butler, and just the sort of the tortured sort of, presence and cry of Ozzy, and all those components really worked well to sort of create this heavy metal sound. And but I think like from a playing standpoint, one thing I think Sabbath particularly has, I think in Metallica did this really well too, is for guitar players, and not that you can't maybe play the Crazy Train riff or play some certain riffs, but as a song as a whole, Paranoid is very simple. Iron Man is very simple. These are simple songs that a beginner can play, but guys have been playing for years and years. They're still great songs. We all love them. We grew up on them. So it's like there's something I think about that just makes it you can get instant gratification out of that, both as just a young aspiring player, or whether it be a Sabbath song or Metallica song, and as a band, right? And these songs are all just timeless and classic. And and they're just, anyone hears those songs, they're gonna be excited, right? It's just kind of part of our culture.
Do you think more people know? This may be an obvious question, not to me. Do you think more people know Ozzy songs, or more people would know Sabbath songs?
I think Sabbath, but...
mainstream.
I'd almost argue. I'd argue that the public is probably more familiar with Ozzy solo stuff, just simply because, I mean, even just based on Crazy Train. How many times has that been played in a sports stadium or an arena?
Right.
You know what I mean?
You don't hear fairies wear boots at the
but Paranoid. I think it's a little bit of each. I think you probably have Paranoid and maybe Iron Man from the Black Sabbath catalog, and then Crazy Train and Mama, I don't know.
I can just imagine, like, going to a football game with Dave and they play Fairies Wear Boots over the PA. Like, he'll be like falling out of the stands into the.
I would
like
He'll be like, "This is almost as good as Motley Crue."
God damn it!
Yeah.
I was holding that joke. I was holding it for my turn to talk. I'm going to say this.
Dave'll jump down and steal some pom poms from a cheerleader.
I would,
just, like,
in a heartbeat. I would definitely.
Fairies Wear Boots, a great song. No one's going to argue that.
Hey, Dave, did you hear Alice in Chains cover that song? On their show? I thought that was like one of the best covers of the night.
No, they did great. There was, I think almost all the bands did great. There was a few performances I didn't care for, but overall I thought most of 90% of them were really good. And it was really funny was some of those deep cuts. Like, Tim, you brought up what was it? What's that? Johnny Blade or something?
Yeah, Metallica played Johnny Blade, and Guns N' Roses, I mean, they did the song Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, but they did like Junior's Eyes and some other.
I didn't even recognize some of those.
There was some definite pulls. I loved Mastodon covered Supernaut. Supernaut's one of my favorite Black Sabbath songs.
That was awesome.
Yeah, such a good song, man.
And it was like, and Braun Daler like has the perfect, the perfect that voice. That was kind of when talking about Ozzy, like the singer, right? I think obviously he was never a trained guy. He was never somebody who was like uber technical with his voice, but he really did evolve and kind of get better. Is it like you listen to the first couple of Sabbath records and he's like surprisingly kind of like lower register, and he was 21 years old at the time, and you had to record everything in like 2 takes because they had no money and all that. But then once you start getting a few albums in and he's like really feeling himself and he's like singing higher and higher and well,
if we're talking Snowblind era, maybe there was a little.
That was always funny to me. It's like, for a band that did so much coke, how come their music never got fast? Like when they put,
they defied the law. Ozzy defied the laws of cocaine. And they never played fast.
Right. Well, and also that's an interesting thing.
They were doomed. I mean,
you see Sabbath live, and it's like, most bands, we play faster live. You think of like Slayer live or Metallica or bands where speed is a very important part of their aesthetic. Sabbath was the opposite. You go see Sabbath live, and they're like the cushions of the couch are like shooting out from under them because they're like so laid back and very, but like it works, because it's like
it works,
like I don't want to hear you don't want to hear like War Pigs fast, right? That would sound ridiculous and counterintuitive, but
that's right.
By the way, we never got. I was going to say,
Dave.
We never got Dave's favorites.
Yeah, Dave.
He needs his.
Obviously, the ultimate sin is clearly.
That and just Crazy Babies off of No Rest for the Wicked.
That's not even an album, just that one song on repeat. Crazy Babies.
So I got to go the first album from both. So I got to go Black Sabbath and I got to go Blizzard. I think that because with the original Black Sabbath record, it was defining that genre. It was something new. It was different. It's very dark. It's gloomy. It's just got harmonica. It's got a little bit of everything, and I think it's bluesy.
They managed to make harmonica gloomy. That in itself is a thing.
It's got a banjo somewhere. But then you go, and the Blizzard was the same thing that introduced us to I guess officially introduced us to Randy for those that weren't following Quiet Riot back then. And it
all
was
6 of them.
yeah, it was something new, and it was different from Sabbath, and it was just like holy shit, because that's when you got Crazy Train, and you're like, oh my god, this is a whole new thing. This isn't Sabbath at all. It's very different. Obviously that album, Skunky played D at my wedding, so it was how apropos is that? But I think both those records said a lot for when they came out. I think they defined the genesis of two very different careers.
Yeah. Well, you think, and what's interesting, it's like you think it's like, okay, when Ozzy went solo, when Blizzard came out, he was 31 years old. Like he was still, in rock and roll years, especially back then, that seems like really old. But it's like, he alongside, say, like the Rolling Stones and other bands as time goes on, like there used to, like at one point in time, we didn't know how rock bands were supposed to get old. Like a lot of them would just die or splinter apart or whatever. So like bands kind of had to write the rule book about how to age gracefully. And Ozzy was one of those people who did that, right? And it's like you never, again, we talked about like not chasing trends and stuff like that, but it's like, yeah, he never seemed like, it never seemed like, oh, here's this guy who like doesn't really have it anymore, and he's Steve Buscemi, like, hello, fellow teenagers, right? Like he always, like whatever he was doing at the time always felt appropriate for the age that he was at,
Yeah, in line with that, it's like I didn't even really like from a production standpoint, and I mean, you can't judge those albums on the production, both because of budget and the time and everything. Blizzard of Ozzy, I mean, but I was like, I mean, for me, it's like my introduction to Ozzy, other than the Dave thing, was like the Ultimate Ozzy, right? The '80s Jakey Lee Ozzy, which I loved. And I still think Ultimate Sin's got some cool stuff. I mean, it's got some really corny stuff, but it's got some really great stuff too. And I think,
thumbs down to Lightning Strikes. That's a dud.
Yeah, Nukia, maybe we could live without that. But I mean, I think Secret Loser's a great song. Ultimate Sin is cool, and then Shot in the Dark. I mean, that is a masterpiece. Killer of Giants. I still think that's a really great ballad record musically, and there's nothing Ozzy's really done that I think is bad. I mean, there's no Ozzy album that I don't really know some of the like super recent stuff, so maybe I don't know about that, but in terms of all the albums up into the early 2000s, like there's never been anything I've listened to with Ozzy where I was just like, oh god, but yeah, sure, there's going to be some duds, but I think for me though, it was the tribute album, because then it was the Blizzard of Oz Diary stuff and Sabbath on steroids with Randy Rhoads on fire. They were clicking. They were a band. I mean, that is an incredible album to this day. One of my favorite albums, one of the most influential albums that I learned guitar from and became a massive fan from. That in conjunction with in '91 at the time, No More Tears coming out. So for me, that was kind of my bigger introduction to Ozzy. And yeah, it didn't matter that he was 40 years old or whatever at the time. It was like, man, this dude rocks. Like, or even pushing, I don't know how old he was, right? But yeah, it was just awesome. And I think he was as cool as anybody in the grunge scene. And that's impressive, because yeah, the Beatles, all those other bands that we knew those as our parents' bands, and later we kind of got into them and like, oh wow, this stuff is really great,
Well, I think
but Ozzy never really went away,
Yeah, well, and I mean, with the Seattle bands, I mean, Sabbath was clearly, I mean, obviously with Alice in Chains especially, but like, not as much with, say, like Nirvana or Pearl Jam, but Sabbath was obviously a very big influence on that sound, and you could, it's not a very long bridge to connect Sabbath in the '70s with. Alice in Chains and the heavier Soundgarden songs, and
the Melvins were like a Sabbath, started as a Sabbath cover band, and they really kicked off grunge, and it makes total sense when we're talking about how they would get slower and slower. I mean, that is the Melvins sort of thing. They just put some steroids on that sort of,
Quaaludes,
yeah. But yeah, I mean that parallel's definitely there. I saw Jerry Cantrell in a band called the Cardboard Vampires, like a cover band, and they were it was him and Duff McKagan, and they were they toured like one time. It was like a little after Lane died. They came to Austin, and they just covered all covers, but they were doing a bunch of Sabbath and a bunch of other stuff. But it was you probably can't even find them online. They're called the Cardboard Vampires. But anyway, yeah, Sabbath ran, pretty deep through their veins for sure.
Yeah, well, and you even see that with all the tributes and everything coming out. It's universal, right? I mean, I think I saw something from, of course, so sometimes now so many like AI generated images and just AI this and that. You don't know. Sometimes you probably got to dig a little deeper. But I think like who was it? What's the Sunday night football girl, the country star from American Idol, Carrie Underwood? I think it was her. Someone like that did a tribute. I think that was even pre-Ozzy, Mama, whatever. But I mean, it's universal, man. I mean, it's Ozzy's like transcends genre in the end. I think these are great songs. They're great songs. And what was scary heavy metal at one time, what was like sort of like this thing that was like, oh man, the satanic scary heavy metal bad Ozzy guy, which fueled the publicity and made it better. I saw some ridiculous clip of Geraldo, grifters of the past, right? Pre-reality TV generation, where we had our talk with Donahues and stuff, and going like, talking about all the 80s suicide, and all the satanic cults and how and Ozzy's just like, oh, it's not my intention, fuck off, just want to make people come together, all that stuff. And it's like, it's true, but blah blah blah. Oh yeah, right. At the end of the day, all that goes away, and it's just like, who doesn't love Ozzy, man? Like, I mean, I guess there's some people out there, but
if you remember,
most,
Skunk, we had a teacher in ninth grade that really hated Ozzy.
Oh yeah, and that's why we loved that class too, because we loved to torture that guy.
So
was he like the dude in the Twisted Sister videos? Like, what do you want to do?
He was the good old boy. Yeah, he was the good old boy.
He was a good old boy. He was also the
basketball coach. All of our teachers were coaches.
The girls' basketball coach. Let's not forget. But we went. Gosh. So we had first and second period together, and we left one coach's class across the hall to his class. And he wasn't there yet. And so I commenced to grabbing the chalk and wrote like Ozzy really big on that chalkboard on the side of the classroom.
Oh, man.
And he came in and was like, who did that? And then he, of course, pointed at us because we're obvious it was us that did it. And I remember we didn't do anything at all in that class that day. He went off on a tangent about Ozzy and the devil and everything. And it was like, this is the best day ever. We don't have to do any work.
Well, then
we immediately went home and watched. We immediately went home and listened to Ozzy Osbourne records.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah,
Yeah, and then the bat, of course. That just like propelled
all the infamy.
I had the shirt that he had. There was a shirt had in high school where he had like eats the bat off the head, and there's like blood on the shirt. It's it's part of the legend, man. Y'all mentioned Supernaut earlier. Did you ever hear the Nine Inch Nails cover of Supernaut?
I don't think so.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
I have not.
It's really good if you
check it out
sometime.
That sounds like.
I bet you some kind of like Metallica did the Blacklist album or whatever it's called with all the different covers of all the. I bet you some kind of thing like that's going to come out pretty soon.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, there was.
With Ozzy and you had. Those... Well, they're already going to release the. Yeah. I mean, they're already going to release the video.
The show, yeah. Well, I was talking about like like the Nativity in Black albums from like 20, 30 years ago. Those.
Is that a bunch of Sabbath covers or what?
Yeah. There was like I think that there was like three different volumes of it. And a lot of it's the ones you've already heard. Like Megadeth's version of Paranoid, and Primus's version of NIB.
That's right. I forgot about that one.
The first one I think came out in like 92, 93. So it's like it's a little bit more old school, like like Corrosion of Conformity is on it, and I think maybe Biohazard or whatever. Volume 2 was at like the height of the new metal era. So you've got like System of a Down covering Snowblind, and Machine Head covering Hole in the Sky, and Godsmack covering Sweet Leaf, and stuff like that. I don't know what was on 3, but yeah, I mean, that's one of those things. It's like the songs can be reinterpreted in any number of ways, and they they remain vital. It's on par with your it's on par with your Beatles or your Zeppelins or whatever. There's some bands that you kind of can't do that with because their songs can kind of only work one way. Do you know what I mean? Like I guess an example I would almost think of is like, as great as Pink Floyd is, and I love Pink Floyd, and everyone else should too. But like, there's kind of only one way to play Pink Floyd songs.
Yeah, Primus did a good job with Have a Cigar.
Yeah,
so.
I mean,
they covered Animals. That was cool. That was
Primus, right? Is that what you said?
There's actually
the Frog
some
Brigade.
really
the Flying Frog Brigade. Yeah,
the Flying Frog Brigade.
So
yeah, they covered Animals.
Primus's
like all the way through. Right?
Miscellaneous Debris has Have a Cigar.
Okay,
they did have a cigar on that album.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's a good cover, but it's not Floyd. So I agree with you, Tim. I think that it's a cool interpretation of it because I'm a huge Primus fan, but I can see where a lot of different bands could come together and do Sabbath songs now, right? Because it's been done. You're right. There are 3 versions of it, but they could do it now, and I think it would be a killer compilation to see people put their own spin on it because it has enough weight to do that. Whereas I think Floyd is just Floyd.
It's hard
Floyd.
to it's
Pink,
hard to.
I've never even heard of that band. Who? Pink who?
Yeah, but to your point, it's hard to play Floyd.
Skunk. The Who is a different band, totally, entirely.
It's just as the Stones are the poor man's Beatles. The Who is the poor man's Led Zeppelin.
Wait.
Yeah, I can't.
I don't even know. That's a thing. The poor man's. I love the. I mean, honestly, like if I had to pick one, a Titan, I'd pick the Beatles. But Beatles, I mean, they're all great. I would personally put the Who at the bottom of those 4. But it doesn't. That doesn't.
You didn't mention Motley Crue once.
Good.
What's wrong with you?
Because it's implied that Motley Crue is better than the Beatles. Come on, Dave.
So Sabbath or Zeppelin? Sabbath or Zeppelin?
Oof, man.
I'm Sabbath.
I see them as very different, man. I see them as very different things. I mean. That's very tough, honestly. I don't know. What do you guys think? I just get to moderate, I'm the mere moderator.
Sabbath. I mean, obviously.
How could you not say Sabbath on an Ozzy tribute podcast?
Yeah,
so I will say Sabbath. Tim says Sabbath.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
Motley Crue. Dave says Motley Crue.
Of course.
Yeah. No, I mean yeah, and I mean, with all the respect and whatnot for Zeppelin, I mean, just most of the music I like has more common DNA with Sabbath than it does with Zeppelin. So,
well, certainly from a heavier standpoint, I mean, obviously Sabbath's kind of the kings of that, right? I think when it comes to Zeppelin, there's a part of me that really, not that they don't have like great rockers and all that, but the acoustic side of Jimmy Page and that side of Zeppelin is such that's a whole nother world that Sabbath, tickled. But if we want to come back to ninth grade English class, Dave, I'm dropping tickle in there. But so but I don't know. I gotta say Sabbath too. You gotta. They're just like, I don't know. Let's see whatever the Spotify numbers say and just go by that. What do you think? That dictates everything.
Yeah.
It's a tough one. I don't know. I always think about those 2 bands, contemporaries, and I don't know. They have a lot of similarities, but I don't know. They spawned, kind of just this branches of,
Yeah. I mean, for my mind, it's like I'd not only Sabbath over Zeppelin. I mean, for me personally, I'd even put Deep Purple second behind Sabbath. I mean,
from a heavy standpoint, yeah.
Or just what I like more out of that, those eras bands, right? But or that particular type, because without even bringing in, say, like, the more proggy guys, like, your Yes and Genesis and King Crimson and all that, but
kind of a different
they're different. Those are different neighborhoods anyway, but
Sorry, I'm doing some chatting here. I'm trying to possibly forward this link. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, Deep Purple. That's a cool one to throw in there. I think Deep Purple gets forgotten. You know, like you always hear Zeppelin. You always hear the bands are in Deep Purple. Kind of, there's like those tiers: the Zeppelin, Sabbath, and there's like the Who, Deep Purple, or something. Not to discount those bands in any way. I just think they're not quite. Although arguably, I would say Smoke on the Water might be the most famous guitar riff of all time. You know,
I mean, well, it's that and Iron Man, the two of them.
Yeah.
You know, they're kind of yeah. I mean, I think as we're talking about that, it's like, you know, Deep Purple. Other than Smoke on the Water, which people don't remember Smoke on the Water as a song, they remember it as a guitar riff, right?
Yeah.
Whereas and Deep Purple never had, you know, like they never had songs that connect. And I don't think that they never had singular songs that connected in the way that, say, like a Stairway to Heaven did, or you know, even some of Sabbath's big hits. They weren't really like a hooky band, right? You know, like they didn't. It just that wasn't their style. I think what Deep Purple brought, I think, more so is that they weren't the only band to do this, but there was sort of this, you know, there was this classical regalness or regality to them that wasn't really part of, like, you know, Sabbath was very much a working class band, right? And Zeppelin wasn't really that, although you couldn't exactly, you know, they weren't, I mean, they you know, they had sort of a different aesthetic going on. And Deep Purple almost felt like you know, they were a little more aristocratic, you know. It's like they were a band that you could tell that like read books and shit, you know. So, I mean,
they were the Iron Maiden. They were the Iron Maiden of their time.
Right, exactly. And that's not to say that Sabbath or Zeppelin were like dumb bands or like lowest common denominator.
Go ahead, say it. Say what you want to call them.
No, they weren't. They weren't. It wasn't.
They just weren't
they
You heard it here, folks. Tim thinks Black Sabbath is dumb.
Yeah,
Join us for more on this slanted news media station.
They just weren't, you know, they just weren't as, say, like, learned, I guess, as
they weren't as learned
as Purple was. But
yeah, there's just something blue collar, like you said earlier. It's not even in the lyrics though, because the lyrics deal with, you know, they're not dumb, you know, they're, I don't want to say it that way, but they're not just like working man, you know, relatable lyrics. It's like they're writing about wars and they're writing about deeper things and global. But I mean, a lot of that, I think a lot of the lyrics were Geezer Butler. So maybe the rest of the guys were morons and he was smart, but I don't know. But like, no, like the reality of it is, I don't think that's the case. I think it's like, it's just really what came out in the music. And I think there's something about the aesthetic overall of Black Sabbath, both in the music, the hooks, the simplicity in a way.
Yeah,
the lovability of Ozzy, all that made it that kind of that blue collar band.
It's underdog music, right?
Right.
Henry Rollins said it really well in one thing, and you know, I can identify this growing up in the North. Black Sabbath was music for the kids who partied in the woods. You know,
Perfect.
And it's like that's you know, yes, that's very true, right?
Just a heads up, we're gonna maybe have someone join. Let's see if this sent. We might have someone else join us in here if it works. I don't know. We're, like I said, I'm kind of flying by the seat of our pants tonight. Just wanted to use this opportunity to just get on here and talk about Ozzy, but also try to go live. And I have no idea what's actually kind of happening in real time. I do see. Do you guys see the comments? Like, there's a couple of comments in here. Do you guys see them too?
Yeah, you can open up the chat window.
Yeah. Dave's sister had some nice words for Dave here. Dave, she's got, there's reparations to be paid for the early '90s Enter Sandman days.
Yeah,
she's caught. Yeah, you gave yourself away.
Jesus.
Yeah, no, you can see the chat. It's not hard to come by. We're not, you know.
Right. So maybe we'll see what happens. Anyway, if someone pops in, just kind of a heads up.
Yep.
But we'll see if that works. So yeah, Blaine, do you remember we went to what year was that? Because that what you said you saw Ozzy in 2005, but that wouldn't have been the same year. No, that would have been maybe it was 2006 when we went to San Antonio and we were like doing the old school putting flyers on cars bullshit. And then
I think it was the year. I think it was the year after I
it was
went that
Ozzy,
year.
and I know System of a Down was like the top billing that year. I
Yeah,
guess aside
that's
from
right.
Ozzy. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. We went to Ozzfest and handed out CDs, hundreds of those things. That's what people used to do. Believe it or not.
And we're massively famous to this day because of it. So Dave, you back to that show that we saw at South Park Meadows in maybe '96. That was. Do you remember who else was on that bill? I guess that wasn't an
No, it
Ozzfest
wasn't.
yet, but man, that bill was freaking. Oh yeah, cool. This worked. All right, we got. We don't have visual. Hey, there he is, Tony Park. What's up? We're actually going to talk to someone who has performed. Was it Woodstock? Or was it an Ozzfest that you played? Can you hear us, Tony?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, great, man. You might be able to put an inch more volume on, but yeah, you're good.
Yeah. Dial me up.
Okay.
Hey
Yeah,
guys,
you sound
good to see you guys.
sound good.
Great. I'm using the computer. I just got a new computer, so it was a little bit of a setup there. So thanks for the invite.
Yeah, man. No, this is great. And yeah, awesome, dude. So for those who don't know, this is Tony Park from 333. We played shows together. We recently played a show together. It had been years. Was it pre? I remember talking about it at the show, and I can't remember if it had been pre-COVID since we played a good Rogering and
I think
333 together. Yeah,
I
just
think
had
it
a
was.
great blast of a night together at Hanover's, a great bar in Pflugerville, North Boston, recently. So yeah, thanks for popping in, Tony. And tell us. I know I forget what we were talking about, but it was me blabbing. It couldn't have been that important. So, Tony, you played with just give us that history with
I can
Pushmonkey.
riff. You want me to just riff for a minute?
Yeah, let us know that. Yeah, let us know that background.
Well, you guys were talking about. I can't remember if it was Dave that mentioned you saw Ozzy in '99 or Sabbath in '99. Was that right?
Oh, Dave, yeah.
Well, anyway, I was kind of listening to that, so I chimed in and said, "Hey, man, I played Ozzfest in 1999, and it was the first year that Sabbath did it, I guess, for a while. So it was kind of that reunion, that whole reunion year. And so I was kind of, texting with or chatting with Skunk, saying, "Hey, man, I was part of that. That was pretty cool. I like the story." So I kind of was having a fun listening to your podcast.
Awesome.
So he invited me to join, so I thought I'd come in here and say hello.
Yeah, man. Tell us the story. So, like, what was that like? I mean, what an amazing experience! Like playing with Ozzy, playing an Ozzfest.
Well, it was. I mean, it's like it's like playing with your heroes. It was when I was with Pushmonkey at the time, and I'll tell you some funny stories if you want. I got to meet Ozzy a few times. He was a super cool dude. I think one of my first favorite little stories was they had those big giant like Starplex style amphitheaters where there's a hill, and it's like band summer camp is basically how it is. All the different bands, and it was like Static X, Slayer, Fear Factory, Godsmack, Primus, Rob Zombie. I mean, it was a who's who of all the coolest bands. Drain STH out of Sweden. Anyway, a lot of cool bands. It was a lot of
Tim
fun.
knows them all for sure. Like
Probably so.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite moments was when we were sitting in the commissary. Me and the guys at Pushmonkey were just sitting there. We're just at one of the little tables, and they had like a commissary cafeteria area where all the bands would eat. And you kind of go in there and before or after your show, and they had craft services and all that stuff going on. And we're sitting there at the table, and all of a sudden, a little entourage kind of walks in, and there's this little dude with a hood on, and he's carrying a little chihuahua, and he's walking in, and he sits down, and they get him some food, and he's sitting there, and I'm like, dude, we're sitting right next to Ozzy. He's right there. That's cool. And the funniest part about it was that I looked at the chihuahua, and the chihuahua was like going, kind of like that. And I looked up, and Ozzy's kind of going, and so we all just started laughing at how funny it was.
The alcohol from Ozzy seeped into the chihuahua, and they were both.
Yeah, it was like bobblehead Ozzy with bobblehead chihuahua. Yeah, super funny.
I mean, he became kind of known for that on the Osbournes, right? With the dogs and the bulldog peeing everywhere. And I saw some clip from that the other day. But
yeah, so he was that way. He'd kind of walk around, and he was really, one thing that was really neat about him is he always made a point to try to talk. Like, we were a side stage band, we were just kind of barely on that tour, right? We were brand new, just reaching that level. And the cool thing was he would come around and talk to us all. Like, he was, being as big of a star as he was, a superstar, really. I mean, he's a legend. He's Ozzy. But he would still take time to go talk to the younger bands and kind of say hi and hang out. And he seemed genuinely interested in meeting us. So it was a really neat experience. And I have to say hats off to him. You know, we lost a legend. I think a lot of us are sad. And, but also I think, he's up there kind of wishing us to keep on partying and keeping on doing our stuff and, keep on playing rock music. So,
well, in the best case scenario world, we'd all like to imagine he's up there jamming with Randy and Lemmy and all the rest of them, so, but that's so cool to hear directly from someone who has done that, who has had that experience and worked with Ozzy, like who has played in Ozzfest, and just to hear that whether it's the biggest band in the world, the headliner, or it's a new band right on the side stage, like that seems to be the sentiment that what we hear about him, that he cared about the young guys, he was always supportive, and like just that's so cool, man, that he was just that.
Well, and the way they did Ozzfest, I think there's probably their model, but they rotated the side stage bands.
Oh, okay.
And I think it was to give everybody a chance.
Nice.
Right? So,
yeah. Okay.
We might start out as like fourth at the first show in Schenectady, Ohio, wherever, and we were fourth. And the next show in Columbus, we would be fifth. And the next show we'd be sixth. And the next show we'd be seventh on the side stage, right before, as direct support for Fear Factory, who was always the headliner on the side stage. And then the next show, you got to be the opener on the main stage.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Holy shit.
And then you bounce back to the beginning. So, we got to actually and we landed, the coolest part was that we landed in San Antonio on the main stage.
Oh,
so
wow,
when
man.
we came back home to Texas.
Hometown heroes, like
we were
on the main
and on
stage.
The big stage. So it was really we lucked out. It was total serendipity that happened. But
that's amazing. That's something I've never heard, man. Thanks for sharing that, Tony, because that is amazing and really, really cool, because that way everyone's getting a fair shot, right? In different cities and in the rotation like that. Do you remember how many dates were on that tour?
I know we played like every other day. I want to say it was maybe 30 dates.
Okay.
And we did pretty much the entire summer. So every other day from the beginning of the summer to the end of the summer, we played a show in a different city. So it was a show day and then a travel day.
Okay. And how much of the U.S. did you cover? Like, was it
the whole thing?
The whole thing? Okay.
Yeah, we pretty much did the whole one circuit around the whole. I've got a thing somewhere. I'd pull it up if I could find it, but I'll send it to you if you want. But one of the guitar players' wives at the time made like this cool map, and it tracked.
Oh, cool!
Awesome.
Old school where you couldn't do it. Tim does that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He's the logistics king of the band. But back then there was no. Let me just pull up my spreadsheet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I think one of my other favorite stories was we got to meet Sharon, and she was tough, man. She was cool. So we were on Lone Wolf Management at the time, and Arista Records, and we had somehow negotiated a deal where we actually got paid $500 to play every show.
That's crazy. Wow.
Which most bands don't. They pay to play or they get nothing, right? But for some reason, I guess we had a little management power behind us, so we were getting $500 a show. And so my tour manager at the time said, "Hey man, let's go get paid." So we go, okay, well, we go to the office, we kind of walk in, and Sharon's in there and she's bouncing around telling people stuff and ordering people. She's cool, cool as can be, running the show, just running it all from the office.
Mm-hmm.
And my tour manager goes, "Hey, we're here to pick up our $500 check," and they go, "Oh, well, let's go clear that with Sharon." Right. And so the office manager goes over and Sharon, and what I hear her kind of in the other room go, "Who the fuck is Pushmonkey? I'm not fucking paying Pushmonkey $500. And then she came out and dressed us down. She was like, "Oh, why am I paying you guys? You guys are lucky to be here." And I'm like, "No, thank you. We would, but the contract says we're supposed to get a check for $500. So please hand us the check." And so she gave us a check for $500.
Well, she said I mean, her name was on your lips, right? So that's the important part, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, and then she signed it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Osbourne, $500. And so we went, and it was just kind of a neat thing. And she's like, "Who the fuck is Pushmonkey?"
That's awesome.
That's you've got to heal. Yeah, no, I think there's got to be a secret little side of all of us that wants to hear that from Sharon Osbourne.
Yeah.
Right?
Is a good Rogering.
I wasn't offended. I was pretty psyched. I was like, "Yeah, I know, right? This is cool."
Yeah.
I got her autograph.
I don't know either how we're here, but it's fucking awesome. So give her keep the 500 to give it to me either way. Awesome.
We cashed it and paid for gas or something like.
Well, no, that's what's cool. Is like you said, man. And I don't know, you would be an interesting person maybe that would have more perspective on this, having toured and done something at that level back, right at the onset, I guess, of the internet really coming into fruition, and then shortly after the streaming and the whole business changed.
Everything really changed.
Everything changed
later.
forever. Yeah. And especially, I'm sure you've had these kind of conversations with Rob Hinton being in your band. We both worked with him in different capacities, and you guys, I mean, Rob being out in LA and working at a major studio and all that, 1-to-1, and just seeing the industry just change in real time in the course of a couple of years. So I wonder, right in that sort of, I don't know if it was a sweet spot, but when you were doing, have you seen or noticed in your experiences, or I don't know, how much you've done this since, but like a change in, like when you said because I think guys like me, you're sort of like, it's almost just like you feel like, yeah, pay to play. Once you peek behind the curtain, you're like, oh, duh, that's how these bands are getting this. It's not always the case, because I do think manage will facilitate it. But I don't think it's like it used to be, where they're like the labels have their baby bands and they're going to put those out there because they want to build that brand, opening up for the bigger acts, right? Now it's like, nope, you want to come on here, you pay to play, kind of thing. What's your experience and your take on all that?
Well, so we ultimately got dropped after that tour from Arista Records, and it was partly just because the industry changed. With Napster, I think was the first one to start doing all the streaming stuff, and then various streaming platforms started coming on, and the labels just started having to cut their rosters.
Yeah.
And because we were a new band, we had like a 7-album deal. We were, we were supposed to be, the next big thing. And we had a good start. We had one song go to like number 22 on Billboard, but we didn't have a hit, right? We didn't have anything that went to number 1. And so we, along with other bands at that level, kind of got cut. You hear stories about like the Goo Goo Dolls, where it was their 4th record.
Yeah.
Where before they finally hit, and it was because when they were coming up,
right,
labels had time to build and develop bands.
Well,
but once that streaming thing happened and the revenue got cut, and there just wasn't record company revenue, they couldn't make enough money. They just started cutting everybody. I mean, a bunch of Arista bands got cut. I remember even Interscope bands got cut. The only bands that survived were Godsmack, I think, that were new.
Yeah,
like Kid Rock. I know he opened up for us on his first show.
Wow, that's wild.
Which is like, whatever that's worth, but he got, I can say Kid Rock opened for us, but
was that
a little bit better?
Was that like he opened for you guys like in Texas somewhere, or
no? It was in Cleveland at a place
in Cleveland while you were. So you were touring, and he was like a more of a local artist in that.
Yeah, he was on Lava
region.
Records at the time, and then I think they got assigned up to a bigger label because he was hitting. He was. We played with him. He opened for us, and then about, I don't know, a couple months later, we opened for him at Irving Plaza in New York, and then he was. I think we tied. Like, I think if I recall, the song he released was Bull God, and that got to about number 21. I think we were fighting for spot. Like our song Hand Slide was 22, and Bull God was 21.
Yeah.
And then he went to 23, and we were still at 22. So like, oh, we're hanging with Kid Rock, and then. We got into the winter time, and I remember, I think it was Lancaster or Harrisburg, someplace in Pennsylvania. It was a club, and we flew in. We got flight delayed, and Kid Rock was going to play before us. It was an all-day show at a club, and we walked in, and he was on stage, and I just remember walking in, and I heard, "My name is Kid, ball with the ball to bang, diggy, diggy, diggy with the boogie step up," and the whole crowd just started going, "Woo, woo." Whoa, whoa, right? And I was like, "Oh, he's gonna kill us." That sounds.
It was kind of like, and I say,
can't beat that one.
Yeah,
I say this is a massive, and this is not a slight to Pushmonkey or Skid Row at all. I say this is a massive Skid Row fan, but I imagine it's that feeling that I imagine that Skid Row must have had. And I hate that I didn't see this concert. I love Skid Row and I love Pantera, and I think in '92 Vulgar Display imagine Pantera being the opening band. I don't care who you are. Kind of like the '86 Master of Puppets Ozzy opening.
It would be
Metallica opening for Ultimate Sin Ozzy. There's just those moments with certain bands when it pops and and it's just like you're like, fuck, I don't want to follow that, But
yeah, I remember watching like what was that? Was it Ricky Rackman's show? It was like
Headbangers Ball.
Yeah. Is that what it was? Isn't that right? Anyway, I remember him talking about how some of the glam bands or some of the Poison like rock bands were playing, and Metallica came in and played before them, and they were all like, "Oh shit, we can't have those guys open for us anymore because
what's the famous
so
one?
Heavy.
What is it, Donington or what was the Monsters of Rock?
Yeah, the Monsters of Rock in '88 when it was Metallica played before Dokken.
Yikes!
That's a mismatch of epic proportions, and no slight to the Dokken fellows, but it's just there's
just some acts you don't want to follow.
Metallica or Pantera.
Yeah,
even before they were huge, but I mean those kind of bands. It's like we don't even know a time when they weren't massive in our eyes.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Well, do you have a favorite? We've never even really talked about this stuff, Tony. Do you have a favorite place where you toured back then? A favorite city? A favorite a venue experience? Particularly, I guess
my favorite place was called the Chance in Poughkeepsie, New York. It was a 2-story venue, so it was a bigger venue. The stage was beautiful. The crowd was everywhere. We opened up for Fuel at that show. We played there a couple times, but the big show was with Fuel, and that was kind of when they had their big hits.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember that it was just such a beautiful place, super cool. The Majestic Theater in San Antonio, we opened up for Dream Theater. That was a super cool place.
Wow, dude! I just saw them there. First time I've ever seen them. Jesus Christ, unbelievable!
Yeah, that was fantastic. And then
I saw
of course
Satriani back there back in the day in the '90s. But
that's
that's amazing. You got to play that. That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, I'm as fortunate as you can be. I mean, sometimes I get sad that we didn't, make it or hit it big. And I've struggled to book shows with you and stuff like that and get 333 off the ground and have been for years, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I have to be thankful that, I got to meet Ozzy and I got to open for Kiss and I got to play with Fuel and Godsmack. We toured with Godsmack for a while. So, I really, for all of the folks out here busting their ass working hard, I have nothing to complain about.
Right.
But of course you always want to have made it, right? So there it is.
No, that's cool, man, and I it's cool that you're humble about it, and you're absolutely right. It's always a perspective, right? And I think when you get one plateau, the plateau to one person is the sky to another, right? And it's
and then you always hope, you're in a way once you get a taste of it, you kind of chase it, and that's what I've basically been doing for most of my life is sort of trying to get back into that level. But the game has changed, right?
Yeah.
It's so much of it is self promotion and social media and. It's funny. My daughter, she does animation videos, and we were doing like a video release of 333 stuff, and we had gotten to like 170 subscribers on YouTube, and I was excited because we were finally growing again, and and then she released this little animation video, and and we were like neck and neck, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna beat you. She had like 170. I'm gonna catch you, and then one day, she released some little animation with a cool song, and she goes, Dad, don't look at YouTube.
Oh man.
Why? She goes, well, and she was up to like 1,000 subscribers and had 620,000 views, and I'm like,
wow, yeah,
you're killing me, man. And she's 16, she doesn't know how to monetize anything, and but that's how it goes.
It's different. Tim and I talk about this a lot. It's just sort of like, the whole mindset, because it's a different generation that's grown up under different circumstances, that's grown up in the modern tech world with the internet, with social media. Those were things that didn't exist when Pushmonkey was doing what you were doing. Things were contingent on mailing, physical mailing lists, management. All those components had to be together. I think, of course, bands at the high levels still have those, and we would all love that. I did, because I think you do this and you realize, oh, that's why all these people exist and these teams exist. It's exhausting trying to do all these things, and it's not practical. And then there was like, when does the artist get to be an artist? So everybody kind of in that sense, like, kind of wishes they had the Sharon Osbourne, I think, but yeah, I mean, it was such a different world. Like I regret that I missed out on ever experiencing any of that. By the time I ever caught a taste of anything, it was already into the 2000s. And I think I caught the very end of the back room, the very end of the right, that kind of stuff. So, and now we just, it's a different world.
You really started, you were really kind of starting out in the most difficult time for original music.
Oh yeah.
Like, that was a super tough time because labels, there were no label deals at all. and that whole industry, which was based on, getting the deal and then getting tour support, because nobody has any money to do tour support. And we spent probably $200,000 and $300,000 on tour support and driving around in this big old nice bus, thinking we were all fancy and cool.
Yeah.
The bus we had was previously was the Boys to Men bus, so we were all like, we're all. So we thought.
Did you guys warm up with the end of the road and yesterday's? Was that your Seven Bridges Road?
Well, it's funny you say that, because "Hard to Say Goodbye" is my warm up song.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
I want to hear that, man. Yeah.
Oh no, only I get paid. I get paid now.
So I want to tie all this together in a way, like I think I lost my train of thought now, but because like there's a thread obviously with just music and metal and Ozzy, and all these things can be the 6 Degrees stuff, but like I mean, Dave and I, we met back in probably 90 maybe, right? And then that was my initial I want to play guitar, my love of metal began, and all that kind of stuff. Tony, I saw you probably Pushmonkey back. It feels like it was even before. I think it would have been before 99, because when did you guys start?
Technically, that group of guys started playing as a different band in '88, but we really started kind of being a known thing from like 94 to 99.
Yeah, so I think I probably saw you in College Station at the old Stafford. I can't remember if it was called the Stafford. I saw you guys probably, in that same kind of time frame we were talking about, Dave. Back to the concert we were talking about. Because you were talking about these great acts that you got to tour with Ozzfest. Some of the ones I remember that really stuck out to me in a band that I had never, I don't think, even heard of, was Typo Negative on that 96 bill. And I became a massive Typo Negative fan, because of Black Number One. I was like, who is this fucking band? Holy shit. And then Sepultura was on that bill, and they were incredible. Like, it really turned you onto a lot of different music. And when did Ozzfest start, Tony? Do you know? Because I can never remember what your official Ozzfest began.
I don't know, but it would have been the mid, maybe I want to say maybe 96, 97, because we weren't the first. We were 99 and we were not.
But that wasn't
we had done a few years before that.
That wasn't a Ozzfest that we saw, right, Dave? I don't recall.
No, it was Ozzfest. So I think, I think what it was, I think there was one year where I guess they had started calling it Ozzfest, but it wasn't a tour. It was maybe like a handful of like one-off shows here and there. And I think it was definitely a tour, at least by like 97 or so. I remember that because I remember reading about it in like all the guitar magazines, because like, there'd be a big article, and you mentioned Drain SPH, and I remember reading about them in the magazine, and like Power Man 5000 and all that. The tour that they were doing, Ozzy was still. It was that very brief period before Zach came back, and Joe Holmes was his guitar player.
Yeah, right? That's who was at the 96 show. That's who we saw. Yeah, because I remember you had seen him with Zach Wild. I had never seen Zach Wild at that point.
Yeah,
and
he had the Faith No More guys as his rhythm section, right? Or sorry, Borden on drums, right? But Trujillo,
Mike and Ed. Mike and Ed.
Yeah, so it was exactly. So. And they were just starting to like kind of bring some of the Sabbathy things. I think it was like Ozzy did a solo set, and then like Tony and Geezer, like Bill wasn't doing anyway. Whatever, it was this kind of tangled mess. But at least like Ozzfest was definitely like its own thing by 97 or so.
Yeah, I think a lot of the energy was in like Lollapalooza in the late 80s, early 90s. It was all Lollapalooza, and then Warped Tour started kind of kicking up, and then Ozzfest became like the main summer festival.
Yeah. Was that the band that was on the 99 Tour Fest? Was that Mike Borden and Mike Annes? Or was it was Zach Wild though, right? On guitar?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I remember in 99 I saw Zach Wild on the first play the Whiskey A Go-Go when they played he started Black Label Society. So was Zach Wild on that Ozzfest?
No, I don't think so. No.
Huh.
Yeah, because he might have been doing Black Label.
He was in 2000. The year after that.
I don't know who.
Zach Wild.
Okay, so
because I think I would have remembered if it was. I don't think it was Zach Wild. I'm pretty sure he wasn't 99.
Okay.
He would have been
the first.
Was that Joe? So was that Joe Holmes? Was he in the band for that long? Like several years? I didn't think he was in the band that long.
I don't.
But I guess it would have. I don't know who else it would have been. So Dave, do you have any idea on this?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Lord Google will know.
Dave's just like, if it's not a Motley Crue related thing, I don't know.
It was Nick Mars.
Randy
Hey Dave,
Castillo
what's the Joe Rogan guy that where he's always like, hey, can you pull that up? That's Dave right now. He's pulling.
Yeah.
Dave, can you pull that up and share a screenshot real quick? Wow.
Yeah. Whoa. Yeah.
Whoa. I like elk meat.
Yeah. Well, I guess Dave would have remembered if it was Zach because he would have got hit with a beer can if it was.
Yeah.
So.
Or I wouldn't have remembered anything because of the beer can that he hooked at my head a few years prior.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. So.
Yeah, Randy Castillo. When did he die? And it would have been, man. I thought Randy Castillo died before Mike Borden. No. Wasn't Randy Castillo would have been when you saw him in the early '90s, Dave? I thought with Zach and Mike Enos.
Okay.
No More Tears. That was the No More Tears. So I don't know who the drummer was.
Randy passed in 02.
Yeah, so. No, he was.
Oh, did he? Okay.
I saw Borden play with him
when
you and I went, but prior to that, it was Randy.
Tony, did you play Woodstock '99 also, or was it Ozzfest?
We did. In fact, the last show of Ozzfest was in California, and then we had to hop on a plane and fly to New York for Woodstock the next day. Yeah, that was a Woodstock '99. That's a terrible festival. It was all.
The documentary was pretty bad.
Yeah, it was a human cesspool, mud, piss, naked people. I mean, you'd think that would seem cool, but it really wasn't. It was just, we kind of were driving out. We were on like a middle stage. There was a couple of the big stages on either end of the festival, a bunch of mud in the middle and people everywhere, high and crazy and passed out and stuff like that. Cause our show was on Sunday and we're driving out, trying to make our way out. And in the background, we see like fire on the horizon behind where the Chili Peppers were and stuff like that. So we're like, we need to go.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just pulled a Joe Rogan.
There's a really cool documentary on that.
Yeah, it's intense, man. It's on Netflix. I watched it a couple months ago, but it's intense. Like I couldn't imagine being there as a concert going.
Everything they said was real. All that happened. Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely worth watching.
And in terms of you guys being affected, like how was the show itself? Like was it a good show, good sound, or was it just the whole thing a mess?
Cool stage, but we were kind of in the middle, and everybody was pretty much passed out. We didn't have hardly anybody, but we had label reps and friends there.
Mm.
We probably had 30 people watching us.
What
was it? This little side pavilion.
How many days was that?
It was the whole weekend, so it was like a 3-day.
And when did you play it like later in the weekend or?
We played on the Sunday.
Oh, so everyone was just
6 or 7. So it was
already
was exhausted and beat,
drunk and sleeping in their own piss. Yeah,
it pretty much. I mean, we saw people just peeing on the ground and peeing on other people. It was just they were ahead of their time. Like, holy cow, what the hell? Like this is human despot right here.
Yeah,
yikes.
It was
so coming from if you had to pick a Woodstock versus an Ozzfest, you would say Ozzfest all the way.
Way more professional, way better managed, much cooler shows for sure. And again, I think they just were overwhelmed at Woodstock.
Yeah,
it got crazy, and people started tearing down barricades, and
it's almost I don't know if they knew. Like, I mean, how can you expect that? But it's like you kind of like if you look at the history of the first Woodstock, it almost feels like there was some maybe a desire to sort of repeat it, not maybe from the organizers, but you know what I mean? It's Woodstock, so we'll just break in and get naked and get crazy and do acid, and then the whole thing turns into a shit show all over again.
And a combination of this sort of teen angst energy. Like I want to say that where it really started to go off the rails was the Limp Bizkit show.
Yeah, and
they talk about that a little bit in that documentary. I recommend. But he kind of encouraged people to break something tonight, you know? And like at that part of the set, people started ripping down the walls and the barricades and climbing on the sound booth and just going crazy. And that pretty much wiped everybody out for the whole weekend. So I'm glad we got to do it. It's a good kind of check on the resume to say, hey, we did Woodstock 99. But at the same time, it wasn't.
Well, guys like us, really. No, obviously we haven't had the experiences you've had, but it's like we know, you know, you're around long enough, you keep doing it long enough, you learn things, you try things are constantly changing and shifting, but it's like you kind of get a sense of how some things work. When I was young, I mean, not even that young, not even that long ago, right? It's just like really, really naive. Whenever, you know, Dave and I, this is what I started to say, kind of like a line drawing from coming out of College Station, going, you know, moving around a little bit. I went back to San Antonio, I went to LA, came back, and Dave and I, who hadn't seen each other in years, I was in a very, very low point in my life living with my parents. There's a knock on the door, and I was just sort of like, oh no, you know, and I was hesitant to answer the door, and then I see Dave like getting back in his truck, and I'm like, oh, holy shit, right? You remember that, obviously, right, Dave? And I mean, we kind of reconnected and everything, and
that was your chance, Dave. You could have just kept driving, and then you wouldn't be in this mess right now.
Shot of the devil,
Dave,
and just
you wouldn't be watching the clock through this whole podcast, yeah. But yeah. Dave was like right there with a bunch of Motley Crue LPs, like let's relive the past. So but yeah, so when I first moved to Austin, though, that would have been 2004, and then Dave and I, like, Dave used to drive from work down here, and we played in Waco, we played you know, a little bit around Texas, but we won't go into those stories. That people want to hear that crap can go listen to that podcast we did. But yeah, we played in a band in 2005, and it was actually on the heels of that. Like at the time, I was gonna audition with Quarter Shackle. That's how I met Blaine, who was like 4 years old back then. And then you know, that didn't work out. And then I get a call a few months later, and it's like, oh, you know, whatever. And so that was where I met Blaine. That's when I met Rob Hinton and those guys. And for me, that was actually my first, even though I had, you know, been to some places, I had been out, you know, in some recording studios. That was really like the first time I was like really in a studio, kind of like, wow, I'm cool. I'm recording an original album with the band, because a lot of stuff prior was kind of a mix of covers, and I didn't have a lot of confidence in my originals. But that kind of led to the formation of A Good Rogering, and you know, here we are all these years later, and it's like we've all seen how much things have changed. But back to kind of what you were saying, Tony, you know, to anybody else, right? They just go, I mean, even to guys like me, you know, like, or, you know, like, it's, wow, that must be so fun and so cool. You live your dream. Yeah. Yes and no. Right. I mean, there's work and there's a lot of, but when the moments where you are on stage, preferably playing for people and not furniture, yes, you can't beat that high. It's amazing. And no wonder Ozzy loved it and lived for it. I mean, he got to experience it in the best way every time. But the thing about it is the difference between, I mean, you can't replicate an experience like that, especially Ozzfest. That's just incredible, whether you're playing to a handful of people or, you know, or not. And the rotation, I think that's one of the coolest things you enlightened us on today was the rotation. That's very cool.
They really did care about helping out younger bands. And, you know, the whole, you know, Osbourne family understands the pay it forward concept, and you know, I don't know, I've always respected them for that, and respected Sharon and everybody for that, because, you know, that's how they run their festival, and they want, you know, they know they can get the biggest bands to play it, but they also they know that tomorrow's new, you know, the young band is going to be the next biggest bands.
Yeah,
right? I want to say, like, I'm trying to think of who was on the side stage, but like Static X was on the side stage with us, and they ended up selling 1 million records, you know?
Yeah.
Godsmack was opening, you know, they were first or second. I think they were second on the bill. And of course they're Godsmack. I mean, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of who else was on the side stage. Well, Fear Factory was, but they were already pretty established. But again, I always respected the fact that they didn't just,
yeah, that's something I never heard. That's really cool.
The side bands on the side stage and leave them over there.
It's not just a matter of okay, you buy onto this and you just play for nobody just so you can say you play this. Which in the modern landscape of vanity metrics, right? We're always looking at how many followers, how many likes, how many subscribers, how many plays, how much of that is real. It's not. We don't know. Maybe some bands, but so much of it's just not real, and we're probably all guilty. You wise up, you learn. Like I said, things are always changing, all that kind of stuff. But the things that you did back then at the very end of that old model, that's not something that could be faked. You know what I mean? And even if you were playing to a small crowd of people passed out in their own piss, thanks to Fred Durst, you played fucking Woodstock 99. How many people can say that? And it's incredible,
I'm super thankful for that. And I wish that I knew how the new model worked.
I don't think most of us do. No one our age. I mean, there's some, maybe your daughter does, apparently, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The younger, but that's what's different. And Tim and I were talking about this too. It's like, you used to, like, our generation, Dave, all of us, it was like, that was a thing. It was like, who's your favorite band? There was an identity. Like, I'm into this kind of music. I'm into that kind of music. This is my favorite band. They're written on your book covers. I mean, you had to go physically buy albums. It was monumental when we all went out and bought Metallica's Black Album, the Use Your Illusion albums, and we all have, we could cite all day long all these albums in our lifetime that meant so much. Those days are kind of gone, they're kind of the research environment, but never like it was going to be back then, right? And I think it's just like that idea of like, yeah, I identify with this and I do too, and like, let's make a band together, and you start, and then you build it up playing local, and an A&R guy sees you, and a team comes together, and they put you on the road, and they shop you and test you with their bigger client, bands and roster. Does that happen at all anymore? It just seems like it's the 1% pop icons, and then everybody else, fighting for the scraps.
No, if anything, I'm guessing that they want you to prove yourself first.
Yeah, exactly. It's completely the other way around,
They're willing to maybe, manage, like, because I've tried to court management since, and they're always like, well, what are your numbers? What are you doing on social media? And I'm like, well, that's what I want you guys to.
I know. Tim and I were just talking to someone about this, right? That's playing with, I guess, a relatively younger band, a little more in the modern, for lack of a better word, sort of a more modern metal style. And it's like, I've heard this from anyone, not anyone, but I guess from a few people that I know that have kind of peeked behind the curtain, that have kind of gotten inside of that world. And then it just seems like, it's like, nope, roadblock, right? We want to see this. How many videos? Content is king. Content wasn't king. Performing, right. Putting out a great record and putting on a great concert, that was king, right? Mm-hmm. Can you imagine Ozzy having to create content that we'd never have Ozzy Osbourne? He wouldn't have been able to do it. I mean, if anything, it would have been maybe he went viral from funny Ozzy doing crazy drunk funny Ozzy shit, but it wouldn't have been the way that things panned out. It wouldn't have been because of the music and the concerts, unfortunately,
Well,
but it is a different world, totally
if
different.
You think about the way the old model was, it was more built on mystery, right?
Yeah.
Oh, these cool bands, we don't know them, but we want to find out more about them, and maybe we'll be lucky enough to see a video and they're in it, and oh, that's a cool band. But the modern model seems to be the opposite of mystery. It's like, we want to see you every day, what you're eating, what you're wearing, where you're standing, who's hanging out.
We used to have to fucking
gotta have the selfie.
We used to have to like go buy a copy of Hit Parader or go over to Dave's house and read his Hit Parader to find out that your favorite Skid Row member liked Indian food. Like, it was a journey. You had to work for that shit. Now it's just like everyone's on. Like you said, man, you nailed it, dude. It's just like, even our favorite the legends are online. You see them every day. Zakk Wylde and those guys playing, putting out stuff on Instagram, and it's like that's like, now it's like you've got two full-time jobs in a sense, right? You gotta keep your social media.
Your marketing
content.
has to be as good as your music,
right? And it comes directly. Yeah. It has to come directly from the artist, like them, because people, I guess that mystique model's just not interesting unless you somehow manage to sort of like be that Tool band that was one of the final bands that came out.
Like the Gorillaz kind of did
right,
that.
but would that still work? Could you still do it now?
Yeah, there are
probably.
A couple
I don't know
that use the mystery thing, but mostly, like, even now you still now you see Tool videos and live stuff and things with, they've kind of had to move in, even as a bigger band, they've had to move into the modern world too.
Right. Well, it's kind of like we said with the 80s, and it's not like the true artists, they only change in the ways that you just, I guess, kind of have to move with the times, because the times are always changing. That's why 80s Ozzy is different than 70s Sabbath and 90, like you're going to get, it's kind of unavoidable, right? But now it just seems so homogenized and scattered, and it's almost impossible to get a read on, well, what is the trend, what's the fashion. Every NAMM, every conference you go to, one year, like, these are all the tricks. There was a few years back where I was like, I'm gonna go to all these seminars and learn all this shit, and I wrote all this shit and I took all these videos and didn't fucking follow up on any of it. And last year I was like, I don't care, because all the stuff they're saying now is going to be irrelevant. It's not the picture, it's the short. Now it's not the short, it's the this. Now it's not Instagram, it's TikTok, blah, 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 right? Yeah. You need someone else to run that shit.
So I tell you what, I'll make a pact with everybody on this call. If you figure out how to make this work, I will share. If I figure it out, I will share it with all 5 of you.
Yeah.
All right. Only us
All
five.
right.
No one else. We can't let the secret out anywhere. We're starting
make a pact.
we're starting our new elitist cult right here.
That's
Like,
it. I like it. The
these other ones
Illuminati
be
of
damned. Yeah,
Boston.
we're the new Illuminati, right? And
Yeah.
probably the worst Illuminati with the least amount of power ever.
Probably.
Dude, we should probably wrap this up because we could all ramble on forever. I don't know if anybody has anything. Oh, Tony, you know what? We all kind of went through favorite. Do you have a favorite Sabbath or a favorite Ozzy album?
So you're going to expose me a little bit. I mean, I liked like the early stuff, like the, Iron Man and Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, but at the same time, I wasn't, and I feel terrible. I wasn't a huge Sabbath fan. I was more of like an '80s kid that liked the popular music. I was a Prince guy, and I liked, orchestral maneuvers in the dark and Depeche Mode and stuff like that. And then weirdly enough, got into rock music is what I wanted to play. But what I liked wasn't what I played. So most of the Ozzy that I was familiar with was, No More Tears, a lot of the commercial stuff that
Right.
that was, accessible in sort of the pop crossover genres. So I don't know that I have a particularly favorite Sabbath record, other than I've never heard a Sabbath song I didn't think was cool as shit and had awesome nostalgia value. And
Yeah.
I mean, there are moments like you were talking earlier about how Ozzy's voice developed over time, and I definitely noticed that even as a young artist. Early on it was always about the doubling and how he kind of sang it one time through and it was a little rough, so they just did a double. And then it became this cool Ozzy effect.
Well, it's weird. Someone, was it you, Tim, the other day that said maybe I can't remember. It was like Ozzy, the only guy that sounds like he's like there's chorus on his voice when it's just one voice.
Oh, yeah.
There's this interesting sound. And I don't know if that's the John Lennon super quick delay. Like I read something about this a long time ago about that, but I mean, you don't know these things until you start going into studios and making albums. And then you go back.
They did a double.
Totally. You go back and listen to that whole Sabbath. I think the whole first record was done in a day and like mixed the next day. It was insane. And yeah, you can hear it. You go back and you're like, oh shit. Yeah, that's just Ozzy singing to Ozzy.
It twice.
That's it. And it sounds cool as shit.
And leaving it rough in a cool way.
Leaving it rough. I mean, that's another thing, back to that sort of Birmingham working class, or for the little guy band, I mean, all of it just fit the aesthetic perfectly.
Yeah. And now that we're in the days of auto-tune, you almost don't hear that anymore.
Nah, yeah. I mean, there's something to be said. I think there's a balance, it's contingent on whatever, but it is cringy to me when I hear, I mean, it's kind of like you can maybe give it like the whole hip hop genre has gone off the deep end. I really hate where modern hip hop has gone in a lot of ways, unfortunately. Because I love a lot of the old hip hop, not to say there's not some good stuff. Admittedly, I'm not as familiar with what's up in that genre. And pop, you kind of give it a little. I love Lady Gaga's new record. I think it's badass. I think there's some really good. It's hard
to argue with a lot of that. Pink,
and I mean,
kills
but
me every record she puts out.
And they've got $1 billion budget and the greatest, so of course you would hope they would sound good. But like sometimes I listen to certain genres, like metal can be just, it's got some of it's so sterile and so perfect. Same with country, like the Nashville pop bro country, whatever the fuck that shit is. It's like, dude, and the whole point of this to have like a little bit of a raw emotion to tell a story. And it's just like, when I hear auto-tune on a country singer, I'm like, okay, can we please cut the shit? Honestly, I know it's there, but if you're making it, I can hear it. Who's fucking producing this? I mean, but it's become accepted.
Modern country to me is basically just sort of 70s and 80s ballad rock.
That's all it is. That's all it is. Cowboy,
like it's all perfect.
Yeah, it's just perfect. Yeah,
and so they're not really.
It's Poison just produced better. Yeah,
yeah, and then I feel like though it's huge, and hats off. Hey, you're able to make money, go for it.
Right. I mean, I'm not on a big tour bus like the guys I know playing country, but yeah, no, certainly not. And I mean, like Blaine was saying earlier, I mean, it's kind of maybe it's hard to do that at this point in time. So much has been done. I mean, it's really, how can you push it? But and I know we sound like the old guys that just don't know what's cool anymore, but yeah, but I mean, if we really want to get down, I mean, I could maybe make an argument though, if you really want to kind of get down to the human emotion and what I mean, as a music teacher, this is such an important thing to me that I always try to get across. It's like you're learning a language. Don't see this. Yes, it's mathematical. Yes, these things are involved, but it's like learning English. Like you got to start small and build it out. And it's like, well, what's the point of that? We didn't learn English so we could sit here. Sure, sometimes maybe you really think and that's what being in the studio is, to try to craft a very well written resume or whatever, right? But But when we're just talking, and there's something magical about riffing, about things happening and then not messing with them when they come out right. And that art has somewhat been lost in the modern landscape of probably music, film, and so many other things.
It's about making that connection.
Right? That's it. That's it.
And I think that's one of my complaints about, when I see, local bands playing, and, like hats off to the last show we did. I thought all three bands were really good. The AGR, us, and Helgrim were all really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But a lot of times I'll go see bands, and I'm not knocking anybody, and I won't name any names, but I walk away going, man, did I hear a hook? I don't think I heard a hook the whole night, or I didn't hear anything that I took home with me.
Well, and I remember after this show, and every band goes through different. You and I, Tony, are very similar in the sense, we've been around a long time. We've had these different bands, but then long running monikers with certain bands, and totally different, right? It just changes and changes, different iterations. People come and go, and you just kind of try to keep going, right, and live, learn and whatever. But like, one cool thing is, I don't know necessarily, it wasn't the first time I met you. I think we kind of met in passing and, maybe briefly chatted here and there. But one of those pre-COVID, maybe 2018, 19, somewhere shows at Hanover's, I remember we played, and I remember this was my, I don't know why, but I would take my shirt off and roll around on the floor. I don't know what the fuck I was, what was going on with me at that point. Yeah, that was my fat, that was my fat Ozzy phase. And like, but I remember talking to you after one of those shows, and you were just like, something you said was very cool. You were just like, I like you or the band. And so it's like, it's the music's great and all that kind of stuff, but you're a performer. And I think we and I have that understanding too. You're a performer. We're up there. We're giving a performance. Tim is like that. We can't help it, but it's not. I don't feel like any of us. We don't script it. We don't sit there and look in the mirror. I can't speak for Tim, but we don't do all that stuff. We get on stage and it just happens. And I think that was what was so wonderful about Ozzy, and what's so wonderful about all the long living artists that we love, aside from their talent, is that genuine quality that they're giving yourself. If I can say anything about myself as a performer, the music is subjective, right? You like it or don't like it, but I mean, I'm pretty honest as a performer. Like, I don't know how to not be that way. And I imagine you're probably the same, Tony. I know Tim is. I know Blaine. I know everyone that I've played with, Dave included, right? It's been a long time, but man, I mean, dude, I was teaching Roadhouse Blues the other day. Remember how we just used to vamp that song and go ape shit? I mean, but that's cool, man. It's real. You're real in the moment with people.
You can even tie that back into Ozzy a little bit, in that, as he progressed in age, he wasn't really the strongest singer anymore.
Right.
He wasn't. And then this last concert he did, he had moments where,
nonetheless,
you can honestly say, hey,
pretty impressive really considering.
Vocals,
yeah.
But he was fucking Ozzy though.
Yeah, like, he's still fucking Ozzy, man.
Ozzy.
Yeah.
And I remember when we did Ozzfest, same kind of thing. Like, he mostly didn't, like, he sang the parts, but he mostly went, ah! And everybody yelled every time. And he knew how to, like, make the crowd go bonkers.
I tell you one thing I got from watching that, man, is, watching that the other night and just kind of being in my sort of sad little bubble yesterday. Like, we were all connecting through social media, and I like most of us probably just kind of had a general sadness yesterday. And then I was rewatching that Back to the Beginning stuff last night, and just watching him, I was like, man, I mean, it was just, it was even more impactful now watching it and just really thinking about how much he was suffering and how hard that probably was and how much it meant to everybody. But also sitting there and just, whether it's Ozzy in a freaking wheelchair that can barely move, can barely do anything, that had to be off of painkillers just to sing, at all, to the old crazy drunk off his ass Ozzy running around. The guy says, there's so many times I'm on stage and I'm like, you're not selling it to the crowd. Just shut up and go through the songs. Just, you're never going to get them. Ozzy relentlessly is like, let me see those hands. Let me the whole show, but in a good, not in an aggressive way. We've seen those bands, and I made these mistakes back in the Pitchfork days.
Well, he had the benefit of being Ozzy.
That helps. It does, but I think it also that doesn't hurt. Everyone's
already there.
Showman. But I think there's a
when Ozzy says put up your hands, everybody put your hands up.
Yeah, and it's because he's Ozzy. But I also think that there's a way that he does it it's fun. It's like, hey, let's fucking have fun. It's not aggressive. He's not like,
you want to like the
why aren't you fuckers into my show? It's like, are you kidding me? You're not having a good time? Keep those hands in the air. Like, let's like,
it's funny that you mentioned that too, because I feel like a lot of bands will make that mistake too. They kind of scold the crowd, and
I've done that in my younger years.
Don't do that.
That's
a foolish maneuver.
Yeah.
Dave was there. He's seen it.
Yeah.
Dave knows all my dirty laundry. Dave's my Don Henley. One of his sorry, Dave. We have now discussed Dave's all-time icon, which we're just making fun of poor Dave, but the Motley Crue stuff, down to the loathsome Don Henley that Dave just cannot stand.
You like Don Henley? It's your fave?
I did go through an Eagles phase when Hell Freezes. I like the Eagles.
Neil fan though.
I don't know. You must have missed out earlier when we were just railing on Vince Neil, man, because God, I mean, dude, let's be honest. Motley Crue, he's a performer, and Motley Crue deserves their place where they're at. I mean, Motley Crue absolutely deserves. I mean, if you're going to pick a single band, arguably you could say Guns N' Roses, but I feel like Guns N' Roses is a little more of their own thing. Like they kind of crossed over into a higher echelon. So assuming like we're not going to include them in that, I think I would call Motley Crue the undisputed titans of the sort of gutter glam rock, LA 80s days, right?
No. I can't argue with that. I'd put Poison up there too.
Yeah. But here's the thing, Tony.
Probably wins that.
Is Poison better than Metallica? That's what you have to ask Dave.
Does Dave want to answer that question?
I didn't.
Now we're just giving him shit because did you hear earlier the Metallica Motley Crue thing we were talking about?
Oh, I don't know that I caught
Dude,
that.
so Dave and I met in like 1990 or something, and I had just gotten into metal, and he was all into all this stuff. So for me, like we became great friends, and he was like it was a big influence for me because I found out about all these bands that I thought like I either hadn't heard of or thought they were all satanic, and Dave introduced me to a lot of this stuff. But I was sort of like, I didn't really know the difference yet between Metallica and Poison. I'm just sort of like listening to all these things. And I kind of intuitively knew like, wow, Ride the Lightning is cool. I remember listening to that on a Walkman at football games. I vividly remember these. Dave and I sitting there being excited and probably high-fiving as two lonely guys, on the side of the bleachers, deciding that our band was going to be called Diseased Disciples of the Metal Church, even though we didn't have instruments yet, stuff like that. But it's like,
hey, you gotta have a dream.
So we're sitting there, and I'm kind of like, what's cool, what's not cool, and I'm asking Dave. I said, I hadn't really heard Metallica yet, and Dave was a huge Motley Crue fan. So I was like, what do you think about Metallica?
Uncomfortably, disturbingly large Motley Crue fan from back in the day. Like I probably should have talked to somebody about how much I love that band. No,
there was no counseling back then. You just had to deal with it.
I already did. Well, this is the fourth time I've had to say
we're talking about it now, Dave. We're here for you.
But I made some comment about, I don't know, something to do with Metallica.
It's for your own good.
I don't remember exactly what the quote was. So we can move on. Yeah, I think you said 20 minutes ago you want to wrap this up. So we'll just wrap it up now. And
so the quote. So the quote was.
We've got the bookends now.
The quote was, Metallica's. Just say it, Dave, because it needs to be done justice.
Something to the effect of was a ripoff or a interpretation of Motley Crue. And look, I was 11, 12. I don't know how old I was back then, but I didn't own a single Metallica album, and that was a dumb thing to say.
Dude, don't be so hard on yourself. I was listening to Young MC. Yeah, come on, dude. Cut yourself a break,
What's bad about that?
It's really not, honestly. What was that? What was his big song? It was Bust a Move.
We're all acting like we don't know that. Like,
I'm proud to say that I never owned Ice Ice Baby, even though everybody else did. I think it was Bust a Move as I check my Walkman.
Yeah.
But anywho, Tony, I'm glad you popped in here, man. It gave a different flavor and a different perspective, and thank you for sharing the stories. Here's what we're going to do right now. Like I was saying, this was kind of a test tonight of actually trying to go live and see if we can do this all in real time. I've never really kind of run one of these, so what I'm going to do is we're going to sign off, and then everybody just hang out to make sure that all of our stuff is uploaded and all that kind of stuff. So thank you everybody for tuning in. Sorry, I see there are some a couple of messages here, but we've been going well over 2 hours, so we're going to wrap this up. And to anybody that listened, thank you. I guess it'll be available soon, and it's on the stream. Thank you, Tony Park from 333, and Pushmonkey for joining us. Blaine Matte, who's going to be playing Skunk Fest at a good Rogering. I'm super stoked about this reunion. Also, check out iTooth, check out Astasis, which we worked on together. My long time friend Dave Tucker, biggest Motley Crue fan in the world, and also an amazing carpenter. Anything you need to build, this guy will build it for you. Much love, Dave. And of course, yeah. And dude, hit him up, man. And of course, Tim Driscoll. There's nobody like Tim Driscoll, man. So we are all looking forward to unification, rock and roll forever. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Until next time, Eclectic Soundtrax podcast. I've been Skunk Manhattan. Bye.